Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Man, I'm ready for a great show for you tonight. Science Bob is here for Science Bob and Friends. We are joined by Dr. Simeon Hein, one of the brainiest fellows in all of Woo, and we love him around here. Dirty Filth will be here with the cartoons as well. Hey, we got a power show of very, very intelligent thinking tonight, so don't expect me to say too much because Lord knows I can't compete with these two guys. Race fan in the gold medal position. Last 46 days, he's got 36 gold, 8 silver, and 2 bronze. And B, how you doing? Roy Boy with the bronze medal, and B taking home the silver tonight. Lisa, John Swan, Linda Thompson, how are you? Michael Morris, Susan Goes, Time Traveling Asians, how are you? Goth White, what's going on? Nightmare, nice to have you here. Let's roll on through as we continue with the roll call. There's Grand Paul Holland. Mountain Mystic, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. Toe Tag is here. Toe Tag will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Moving on, D. Cohen. Black Dragon, a great Marine. We love our veterans around here. Thank you for your service, Black Dragon. NorCal, in trouble with me. Why? Ate breakfast for dinner tonight. That's a no-no. That is a deduction on your scorecard. Jules, how you doing? Thank you for joining us as we continue on with roll call. There's Charles and Dirty Filth as well. Scrolling on down, Lars Janssen is here. Number 12 in your program tonight. Number 12 in your program. Moving on here, there's Samantha and Data. How are you? Thank you for joining us as we continue on. Thin Lizzie Borden. Yep, she is awesome, and she is back again. Thank you for joining us. By the way, Thin Lizzie will be signing autographs after the show as well. And if you're lucky, her husband, Gary, may join her, but only on one exception. You got to tug his beard. You have to. It's the law. Glenn John McEnroe, nice to have you back. And let's see, Alien Critter. Good to have you here. Cosmic Fleur, Donna Spencer. Marty Burback, how's it going? As we continue on with roll call, Cosmic Fleur again, because I like saying her name twice. Linda Thompson, thank you so much for kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you. And if you ever get a chance to meet Linda, give her a hug, because Linda gives amazing hugs. She is a brilliant researcher in this field. I love her to death. Ozzy, oi, oi to you. Greg Moyes, Lala Bright, welcome to the show. Michael Gutierrez, thank you for joining us. A Muse, DH, welcome to SOR Chat. Is that designated hitter? Kathy Evans, Chad Robbins, what's going on? Thank you for joining us. Asteroid, good to see you back. Aunt Edna, thank you for coming on in. Mr. Catfish, Amy Vegas O has returned. Amy, let me know if you've got in touch with your bosses, because we kind of have a party to plan, if you know what I'm talking about. And let's see here. Where's that number locked? There we go. All right, Michael Godbold, how you doing? Phil Minervito, Science Bob. Doug Shelby has arrived. Thomas Rock, Zach Martin, thanks for coming on in. Ryan Roll, GF is back. And who else? Beverly Holmes, thanks for coming on in. Peppa H, Mama Susan, thank you for joining us. And I think we're almost caught up here. Almost. Hey, Bomber, how are you? and Michigan UFO Sightings and Encounters. How's it going? Long time no see. Tricia, how's it going? We got about 60 seconds or maybe 30 seconds, something like that. And let's see. Jenny, what's happening? Mr. Catfish, good to see you. Boo Radley, Paula W., thanks for coming on in. Great show tonight, everyone. Nicholas Shaughnessy, good to see you, buddy. How's your hair? Give us an update. All right. And over in the other Spreaker chat room, we have the fabulous Bill WD40 hanging on out so far. And let's get to it. Super chat is open. The store is open for you to get some swag. And for all of us here right now, horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have a power show for you tonight. Science Bob and Friends has Dr. Bob McGwier and Dr. Simeon Hein taking the woo out of the science and in again. Then in hour number 3, we're going to head to the swamp for the Swamp Dweller. We have Tim Senor coming in for the UFO report, and Shirky Poo will have the news. All right. It's that time of the month once again where we bring in Dr. Bob McGwier, known around these parts as Science Bob, where we bring in a guest to talk about the scientific research background of all the topics we love to talk about here. Hey, high strangeness does have some scientific methods that go along with it. Maybe we can't prove it, but we are sure on our way. Tonight's special guest from Boulder, Colorado, height unknown, weight unknown. Dr. Simeon Hein is here from the Institute of Resonance in Boulder, Colorado, and he is here to discuss absolutely everything that we love to talk about. He's investigated crop circles, remote viewing, UFOs, paranormal. How does it all tie in together for Dr. Hein? And this is what him and Science Bob are going to discuss and debate tonight. Science Bob, it's a pleasure to have you here. Dr. Simeon Hein, thank you for joining us as well. How's it going, Science Bob?
It's going really good. I just completed 12-day business trip. I just got in 30 minutes from before we started the show. So I had to coffee up to be alive because Simeon is going to be here to entertain us with some really interesting scientific discussion on the many things he has been researching recently. And I just wanted the audience to know that Alala Bright and I are taking Simeon's self-paced remote viewing course, and that's always good. And we're coupling that with blindfolded seeing with Wendy Gallant and doing Sean McDonald's book. And Simeon himself said that a good way to learn about the techniques for remote viewing is to do this blindfolded sightseeing, because you have a guaranteed reporting. You know exactly what the answer is a few seconds later, so you get instantaneous feedback. Where in remote viewing, you without that, you have to learn by a long, slow approach, and that instantaneous feedback helps you learn faster. Simeon is full of really good tips like that, and he gives great talks about remote viewing, and I'm thinking it's going to be really terrific to hear from him tonight.
Well, thanks a lot,
Dr. Hein. You were just on a couple of weeks ago, and
Yeah.
we said we were going to bring you on quite quickly again, and here we are once again. Because after that show we did just a few weeks ago, people can find it on our archives or podcasts at any broadcast network. I mean, Bob was like, "Dave, we got to get Simeon back on for the show," and I'm like, "Yeah, we do." Yeah, we do. And you know what, Simeon, the one thing I want to say to you before we continue on here is every time you're on, or every time we have the ability to talk, I'm learning something. And I really appreciate that. A lot of times we bounce around these topics, but, I think few out there have the knowledge and the understanding of what we are going through in this weird and strange land as we're all trying to find our own answers. And I think you're one of the open-minded scientists that we need in order to help accomplish some of these goals. So thank you for your hard work.
Well, thank you guys. And thanks for having me here again. I mean, we all work together, guys. This is a collective effort to figure out what in the world is going on here. So it takes everyone. It takes everyone to do it.
Well, Bob, you wanted to do this one. I'm going to turn the keys to the ignition over to you, and let's run with it. Let's pick. I want to hear you guys pick each other's brains here tonight.
Okay, so you can see Lala Bright's super sticker. She's the person working with me through your course,
Okay.
and she is a superb psychic, and I'm a rote beginner. So there's some imbalance in that, and so good advice when you're working with somebody as talented as her and somebody as novice as me would be very helpful. So I'll give you an example. We took a pack of construction paper, colored construction paper, and did the first step in the blindfolded sightseeing, which is, of course, your first step toward being able to do remote viewing. And I was really pumped up and proud of myself getting 60% of them right the first try, because I thought that was really good, and I believe it is. She got 100% the first try. So there's some disparity. How do you work through those disparities and when you're training together?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Bob. So you're going through the virtual viewing class right now. I don't think
we are.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her name when she signed up, but I saw your name. I checked the class once. That's the virtual viewing self-paced class. Yeah,
we're sharing it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's great. I'm really happy to hear your results. I've enjoyed interacting with you as you've gone through it. Isn't it fun to learn that you have this ability I remember, Bob, when I first learned this back in 1996. I came in as an open-minded skeptic, like some of us are who've been through science training in graduate school. You mean you're open to it, but you want to see something that shows you that it's there beyond your belief one way or another. And it was such an amazing thing to see that I could do it, that other people in the class could do it. And everyone has a different degree of natural ability. I mean, I think everyone can perceive non-local information just spontaneously. But some people seem to be really tuned into it, and they just get it a little more quickly. And I think Swan used to compare it to musical ability or artistic abilities. Everyone can draw to some degree, and some people are really good at it. And musically, everyone can hum a tune. Some people are virtuosos. And I think that applies to RV. That's my sense of it. I know other people have different ideas, but that's what I think it's like. Everyone has some degree of ability, but you can always improve on what you already have. And it's always practice that improves any natural ability. So I'm really pleased to see that you're so enthusiastic about it, that you've gotten results that show you that there really is something going on there,
Yeah, I'm a mathematician. 60% repeatably is non-random. I mean, that's not a random result if you can continuously. And of course, anybody who gets 100% every time they sit down, they've got something going on. Okay, yeah. So that's pretty astounding. And then we tried. But we did take it a step too far. Pupils often try to jump way ahead. So we took the whole pack full of them, and we tried to do too much, and we failed. So you got to pace yourself and constantly do this practice. So we learned that really quickly by trying to jump too far ahead.
Yeah, well, Ingo used to say to quit on a high. In other words, you quit when you got a good run of contact with the targets, and you don't push it too far to exhaustion until it's not fun anymore. I'll always be careful of that. It always should be something that's exciting, that's fun. I know what it's like to do too many sessions or too many in one day where it's just exhausting. And I think the military viewers, if I understand this correctly, suffered from that. They came in day in, day out to their building at Fort Meade. Yeah. And they just were viewing and viewing and viewing. And I think some of them got burned out on it. So don't do that to yourself. Keep it fun and keep it exciting.
Yep. That sounds like great advice. So Dave?
Well, just listening to you cohorts here kind of bounce off this, for myself, I'm sitting here thinking, naturally, after I had my own, let's just say, epiphany back in 2011, I didn't know that I knew how to remote view. I didn't know that I knew how to astral travel. It just seemed to happen naturally. Simeon, how many people are out there right now are having that experience just like me, where it's just natural, where it's happening and we don't know how, we don't know why, and yet here we are trying to experience these things and we don't even know what we're experiencing or how to experience it.
No, Dave, that is such a good point. I'm so glad you said that. I think many people experience some facet of this non-local reality information, what I think of as a sort of resonance reaction. It can take so many different forms. I was just talking to a local tea store owner just yesterday, and he said, Simeon, I know what you're interested in. I have to tell you some experiences that happened to me as a teenager. On 2 occasions, I felt in the middle of the night that I had gone somewhere else. And even though I was awake, my eyes were closed. I could see I was in a location. I felt like I was physically in another location and I wasn't dreaming. I knew I was awake. What did I experience? I think a lot of people, just like on your show, you cover people's experiences with cryptids, right? Something that's actually still a new topic to me, despite the fact that I've been writing about it for, over half a year. And my Dark Matter Monsters book just came out. It's still a new topic to me. I think a lot of people have experiences with non-ordinary phenomena and they don't know what to do with it because we haven't had any training in our society about this type of reality, and people become confused. More than likely, guys, they don't even talk about it to anyone. Just like this tea store owner finally confided in me. I've known him for a couple of years, and in some cases I've known people who haven't told me about their experiences. It took decades. So it takes some sort of training, whether it's RV or CSETI training, whatever you like to do. There's not just one way to do this. You should do something to get yourself in contact with this bigger reality, whether you see it as parallel realities or multiverses, whatever works for you. You need some sort of training to deal with it, because one thing I've learned from this, RV, your conscious mind doesn't know how to handle this. And it needs some help. It needs to know it's going to be okay. It's not being threatened by some sort of bigger spontaneous process that we're surrounded by.
Okay, so the fact that so many people are wanting to learn this or naturally have the ability to do this, Simeon, my question to you is, how do we control it? How do we get it to work for us?
Okay, so that's a question that comes up a lot. And I would say it's a type of control, more like a controlled crash. Because to do something like RV, and I'm happy to hear Bob's, reaction to what I'm going to say here, you're sort of going out of control, but not completely. You're letting the floodgates open up a little bit to your own unconscious, but still in a controlled way, if that makes any sense. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. I mean, the first time, remember as a kid when you're 5 and your mom taught you how to ride a bicycle, or your dad, there's that feeling of like being out of control. But once you kind of learn to center your gravity and to kind of flow with it, it's a new type of control, right? So it's giving up one type of control, learning another type.
So I also want to, I'm a radio guy. I mean, I just did software-defined radios and in the early days and did a lot of it and continue to do it. So this is not, you have a flood of signals coming into your brain. And the thing you have to learn is to tune the radio to the right channel. So you've got to figure out how to, with intent and focus and calming and shutting out the I gotta guess everything and characterize it, etc. brain, to the other part of the brain that just listens carefully and tries not to impose itself, its ideas, its preconceived notions, etc. It just lets the information flow, and you tune the channel. That's all you do, is tune the channel, but listen to what's on the channel you're tuned to. And I think that's a pretty good analogy too.
Yeah, I think it's a very good analogy, Bob. There's a lot of information coming into our awareness every single second, and we know from all the research that we filter more than 99% of it out all the time, every single second. And it doesn't stop when you go to sleep either, because there are parts of your brain that are more active when you're asleep than when you're awake.
Right.
So it's the way that people in CRV explain it, which is the system that Ingo Swan created. Some people call it controlled remote viewing, coordinate remote viewing, whatever you want to call it. The system I learned and the system that I teach in the self-paced course that you and Layla have been going through. I mean, it's a process of separating signal from noise.
Right.
Same radio analogy. You've got noise, and that's coming from your imagination and your conscious mind and all the things that we're concerned about every day, survival issues, and just what all of us do every day. But you're focusing on this very subtle, non-local signal, right? And Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels pretty faint.
No. It is faint. You got to really be mindful. You got to really calm down. And you got to let yourself just kind of figure out how to wash all that trash out and get the one that, so it's like matched filtering, in the sense that you got a bunch of stuff coming and you're looking for a match to some filter type you've got, so that you get a big detection. And you can only do that if you work at it, because you've got to shape the filter to give you the match detection. Otherwise, it messes up the signal and that washes it out in noise. So you're trying to increase the signal to noise ratio by some process in your brain. And we're going to learn it like you were doing naive machine learning. You're going to keep trying. You're going to tell yourself when you fail, and you're going to keep trying, and you're going to pat yourself on the back when you succeed. And you pat yourself on the back and you spank yourself a little bit when you fail. And then that tells your brain unconsciously what it needs to learn to do. Like training a baby how to speak. You say, no, don't touch the burner. And it touches the burner and it gets the negative feedback. So you need positive feedback and negative feedback. And with that, you will learn.
Right. But let me add one important thing to that, what you just said. The one rule in CRV, there's really only one rule. It's just don't edit anything out.
Right.
So just so the audience is clear here, the filtering is not to suppress anything. The rule is, once that session starts and you've got that blank paper, right? You have to decide if the signal that you're getting, or the information, is it noise or if it's signal. If it's signal, it goes in one part of the page. If it's noise, right, it goes off to the right, analytical overlay, as we call it. And that's your job. That's the conscious mind's job during the viewing session, is to decide, not to filter as much as to decide, is that signal or noise? And we know that the noise is a lot louder than the signal. And it's just like you're saying, you're reversing what we've been taught for decades in school. We're taking that loud, noisy signal that talks in your mind all the time and saying, okay, that's great, but we're putting you off to the side of the page. Not saying you're wrong. We're just going to leave it to the side. We're not going to commit. And we're going to focus on that really subtle signal. And boy, was I surprised how subtle it was in the beginning, the first couple of days of training. I mean, it's there. In the back of your mind, that signal is there. As you're saying, you learn to focus it on it as you do more practice. It's surprisingly weak, but surprisingly accurate. What a freaking paradox. It goes so much against our Western scientific tradition, where we're looking for loud technicolor data, almost the more technicolor, the more, the stronger the amplitude, the better. This is the inverse of this, because it's a resonant space. It's a really subtle signal. But once you do some training like you and Layla have done, and many others, you start seeing, wow, I can depend on that very subtle signal It's very accurate. And I'll tell you something. If you have something coming up in your life, a situation an hour from now, later in the day, where you need to be paying attention, you're going to get some of that feedback coming in from the future earlier in the day. And the RV shows you all along why you could trust your intuition, because everyone has some experience of this in their life just naturally, right? When something comes up or a family member is ill or they need to do something or take a different route to work, and they just get this gut feeling, I should do this without any logical reason why. That's the same signal, in my belief. It's just an RV. We learned how to train it a little more, but we all know what that is. It's just when it's survival, when you're on a camping trip or a extreme expedition or something, and there's a survival issue coming up and you get that sense, a strong feeling. This is actually a lot more subtle because it's not as directly related to you.
Okay, so let me try to go at a slightly different approach. Maybe this will help people.
Sure.
Every statistician and probabilist knows the law of averages. And so you've got this thing which has some signal in it plus some noise. But the noise is completely independent, random from every time you take a look. So if you look for a while, you're going to get a bunch of looks with signal plus noise. The signal is always in the same spot. You look at it over and over and over again, and as you average all those things together, the signal starts to come out of the noise because the random stuff begins to cancel out. And that's the law of averages, or the strong law of large numbers, etc., in mathematics. So you just keep averaging, keep looking, don't give up, keep looking, and suddenly all the noise averages out, and the signal comes up out of the noise.
There you go. There you go. And I got an interesting little fact for you that I think you'll enjoy, Bob, which was Dale Graff, who was one of the directors of the Stargate program. It might have had a different name. I guess I can say this. He told this to us, so I don't think it's classified information. He actually came out of Wright-Patterson working in noise and signal related to the stealth aircraft F-117.
Right.
And he once told me, I hope I'm not giving away national secrets here, that his job was to learn how to make it more invisible by looking at what noise looked like in the atmosphere and learning how to subtract that so all you were left with was signal, and then how to add that back in so our adversaries wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So
but that's so high level, that's not classified. If you go down to how he actually did it,
right,
that's classified.
Yes. Yes. But it relates to RV, and it's no surprise that he's someone who wrote Psychic Tracks in the Wilderness, and he still teaches he does it dream viewing, how to do the same process overnight while you're asleep. He thinks it's easier to do while you're asleep, but it's the same process. So
I believe the sleep part, because you're quieted. You're quieted down, and mostly you've got nothing. You have much more signal than you do crap, because you've shut down your ears, you shut down your senses.
There you go.
You're only listening to signal in the brain. So all that crap is coming in from senses is no longer there because you're not conscious.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. Man, that was a quick 30 minutes, right like that. Just snap of a finger and bang, we are gone. That's what happens on Science Bob and Friends with Dr. Bob McGwier, formerly of Virginia Tech University, and Dr. Simeon Hein, as we continue the remote viewing talk when we return. And I got a question for Dr. Hein when we return, and I'll let him ponder it over the break here. And that is, are there places we're not allowed to remote view or astral travel to? Maybe there are, maybe there aren't, but I know a good friend of mine recently got warned. We'll talk about that when we return on Spaced Out Radio right here. Stay tuned. All right, gents, remember the YouTube audience can hear us, and Simeon, I'll get you to answer that when we come back from
YouTubers. Mm-hmm. Great questions. Boy, this is fun. I love talking about this subject. Jeez.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Do you pick up?
You're pretty eloquent, So it's easy to listen to. I've listened to a bunch of your lectures, and they're never boring.
Well, thank you.
No, I was really. I watched your recent thing where you had your recent live YouTube thing. That was fun.
No, thanks, Bob. And I'm sure you really seem like someone that would really, get something out of it. You have the experience. The radio analogy is really good. But I think for all of us, Ingo wasn't exaggerating. It's one mother of a surprise. The fact that it works and that everybody can do it to some degree, and nobody told you about this in all the years any of us were in school. No one ever said, oh, by the way, your intuition can be 60, 70, 80% accurate. Who told? No one told us this. It's true.
I didn't believe any of it until I got to know Dave.
Well, and that actually leads to a question. Simeon, I freaked out Science Bob one time where we were having a conversation, and I actually picked up that our conversation was being remote viewed.
Wow.
And I actually saw the remote viewer. And I actually even pointed out, I've never been to Bob's house. At this point, I hadn't even seen pictures of it. And I actually said, Bob, there's a big bay window near you. And is there a big tree in the distance of that window, like close by that window? And he goes, yes. I said, there's a man standing there. And Bob turned around and actually saw the shadow of the man.
And felt creepy crawly all over me in that direction.
Yeah.
And then the other thing Dave said, after I found this camera across from the front of my house, and I didn't put it there in a notch in a tree.
Wow, there it is. There it is.
I got Dave to describe the RVer, and other people have had that I won't mention here have had me and them being remote viewed. They're an artist. I had them draw a depiction of the RVer. Yeah. I actually knew which one and where at Fort Meade he sat. Oh, Lord, that did not go well for them.
Yeah. So you have the feedback. You actually have the camera that somebody played. It's such a fascinating subject, and it's like this spy versus spy. Remember that old cartoon?
Oh,
yeah. Well, actually, it seemed like that in the RV world, at least during the Cold War. The viewers from the Soviet Union, the U.S. viewers at DIA, they eventually met each other after the Cold War. Ed May wrote that book, ESP Wars, East and West, and he describes going over there and meeting their counterparts. And, of course, they all got along really well because they had so much in common. But it sort of really happened, and I imagine it happens even here. I can imagine scenarios where it would be happening more than you would think. So.
Well, I retired after 27 years. I left the IC to go be a professor at Virginia Tech for 11 years. But before that, I was in the intelligence community for 27 years. Yeah. And then I retired on 6 May 2020 because I was sick of sitting in a building all alone with a closed down campus because of COVID.
Yeah.
It just got to be too much, and I left.
I can understand that. I've got an interesting story for you about this. Glenn Wheaton of the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild once, people might be familiar with him. He gave a presentation of viewing the Soviet numbers recipients. Do you remember on shortwave radio, there would be women?
The number stations. I used to record them. Not only that, I tried to decode them while working for the agency.
Oh, well, wow. As a kid, when I used to listen to shortwave radio, I'd save up my paper route money. And I was wondering as a 10-year-old, what is this? Well, Glenn Wheaton, he disclosed to us, they did viewings of the recipients, the people in our country who were waiting for their numbers to be called.
The illegals.
And some of them, when they actually arrested some of these people, it was so close to his sketch. So really remarkable. So that's another way it was actually applied, which I don't think many people know about.
So at the NSA,
Bob, I got to cut you off right there because we're going to come back in 10 seconds. Thank you to Linda, Ken, and Lala for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciated. It's a great way to support what we do. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate having you all here. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. All right, let's get right to it. Science Bob and Friends is the show tonight with Dr. Bob McGwier, who joins us once a month to skip out on the woo and talk about the who, what, where, when, why, and the science behind all things phenomenal. Tonight, we are joined by Dr. Simeon Hein, and we are talking remote viewing. And, Bob, I'm going to start off with a question I had for Simeon right before the break. A couple weeks ago, one of our weekend hosts, Jessica Jones, was going to do a show, because she is a remote viewer, on remote viewing the moon. And about an hour before showtime, from someone that she knows, she got a warning saying that it is not safe for her to do that and to change topics immediately. Now, I have heard personally there are certain topics and certain places that are not to be remote viewed. You can actually get in trouble because they do have security that looks for this type of thing. Is this all sci-fi, or is it really happening first and foremost?
Yeah, good question. Where's Ingo Swan when you need him? This is what Ingo was so fascinated by. What led him to write his book, Penetration, A Question of Extraterrestrial and Human Telepathy. He wrote a book about viewing the moon for some black budget agency, which is still to this day, we don't know who it was. But my belief is that everything in theory should be viewable because it has a frequency in space-time, a quantum frequency. It should be perceptible to you, disregarding whether it's the ethical questions or legal questions. I think, just the physics questions is that things should be viewable to us. Now, what Ingo believed, and I can't verify this, but it goes to your question, is that he thought that there were species that didn't want us to develop our viewing ability, that didn't want humans to grow or evolve. And that's what prompted him to write his book, Penetration. But I think things are more viewable than you would expect. But I think, and I've seen some of Jessica's shows recently, so I know what you're talking about. You might get the feeling like it's not a good idea. And here's why. Viewing creates a two-way connection with the target. And this is why I like to spend a lot of time on neutral targets that won't care if you view them or not, like monuments and landmarks and mountains and public figures and so forth in the public space, because you're creating a resonant connection. And quantum entanglement, it's a two-way street. I've heard a story, guys, where a viewer was doing corporate spying for a particular U.S. corporation, and one day she stopped at a gas station to fill up her car, and she noticed that the guy at the other pump was staring at her. And she looked back at him and realized it was her target that she was supposed to be spying on, and that he recognized her in some vague way. And it made her feel so uncomfortable, I'm told, that she never did it again. So it has to do with, what do you want to be connected to? What's on the other side? Is it something that you want to have a resonant relationship with? That would be my answer.
Is there places, though, in my second part of this question, that you should stay away from? I'm thinking Area 51, the Kremlin, the Pentagon, because one thing is, as someone who has actually seen remote viewers remote viewing me, and it happened with Science Bob here, it worries me that all of a sudden you have that ability to maybe go into an area that's a no-go zone, and now all of a sudden you've left some sort of, I get what you're saying, you've left some sort of mark there that other remote viewers, can now track you on that.
That's such an interesting question. My guess my response would be, you always need to consider the ethical side of it. I mean, would you feel comfortable if someone was viewing you in that way? You need to ask that question when you're the viewer. Would you feel comfortable if you were on the other side? Would you feel it was okay or not? As far as Area 51, we love viewing Area 51. We've had some of our best sessions viewing Area 51, looking in the hangars and so forth. It's all, to me, at the end of the day, like being in a movie theater. You're not actually there. You're picking up signals from that location in space-time. That's my view of it, which is why I call it resonant viewing. I don't actually think it's like astral travel. I don't think you're literally going to the site. I don't think you're breaking any laws. I'm going to go back to Bob's analogy. Also being, as a kid, starting with radios, crystal radios. That's how I started my interest in all this, was building kits and electronics and stuff. The signals are there. All you're doing is deciding to go beyond the ordinary social consensus reality that you've been conditioned to believe is the only thing that's real, and pick up more signals. So that's what you're doing. And in a movie theater, if you don't like the movie, you can leave. You can walk out of the movie theater. And that's what RV is like. If you don't like what's going on, and I don't encourage people to view things that could be upsetting to them or disturbing or anything like that, unless that's what you've signed up for. But you can always end the session. And I like to say, and people who've trained with me, I repeat this, and I learned this from Lynn Buchanan. The viewer is always in charge. Lynn Buchanan, the viewer from the DIA. The viewer is always in charge. So the viewer can end the session. They can say, I don't want to do it if they don't like it. So if you're in charge and you're picking up signals like a special radio, a special etheric non-local radio, the signal is here. The signal is actually in the space around you. You're not actually at the space. So I don't actually think you're violating laws by doing that.
Science Bob, you've worked in the intelligence side of this. What do you think?
So I'm a little bit skeptical, but I've got an open mind. But I do have another question for Simeon that's just kind of been weighing on me. So it's a little difficult. So I'm going to poke. Talking about quantum entanglement to somebody who has done a lot of quantum mechanics, as being a part of this, I'm a little confused. I'm going to tell you why. So quantum entanglement says if I throw two dice up in the air and I uncover one of them, it tells me something about the other one. Okay. So, but when I uncover the one I look at first, it's completely random inside my hand. And so when I open it up and see what the random thing is over here, all of a sudden I know something about what the now non-random thing is in the other hand. So what this means is the die in my hand doesn't even exist until I look. So since it doesn't exist in my hand till I look, I can't see how to use it to transfer information. So I don't understand how quantum entanglement has a lot to do with remote viewing. I'm lost and confused. So help me.
Yeah, and you're not the only one, Bob. I've actually asked this to physicists in the Boulder area, some of whom work at NIST and these government labs, exactly the same question.
Good. And
they have assured me that there's macroscopic quantum entanglement. They give me examples of quantum computers and all other examples. So because this is what's come up so many times, is exactly what you've said, is that quantum entanglement doesn't exchange information. And Russell Targ has pointed this out many times, which is why he doesn't believe quantum mechanics is a model for RV. My model for it, because of these issues, and there's debate about whether you can exchange information through quantum entangled particles or not, for exactly the reason that you're saying, is they don't actually have information until you look at them. I actually like to think of it more classically, and I'm using the quantum entanglement as a kind of analogy that people understand, that spooky action at a distance, because Einstein talked about it. But my preferred analogy is tuning forks.
Yes.
If they're at the same frequency and you hit one tuning fork, the other will spontaneously ring.
I love it.
At a
Love
distance. And that is how I explain it in my classes, because everyone knows tuning forks, everyone knows instruments. When things are at the same frequency, they just naturally.
So I get it. So now my brain is emitting a signal, and the signal is my tuning fork pitch. My signal goes out and excites somebody else's tuning fork pitch in their brain if they are open to it.
Yeah, and you have the ability to modulate the frequencies that your unconscious mind picks up. This must be true if RV works, is that you can pick up a broader range of frequencies than the ordinary electromagnetic spectrum.
Right.
And what you've been told by society is real.
Right.
This must be true. You're picking up more, and your unconscious has the ability to translate that into words, which your conscious mind picks up and writes down. So what it means is that we have a much broader frequency bandwidth. The human beings have a much broader frequency bandwidth than we thought. And this is why we also pick up other life forms and UFOs and other species that operate at different frequencies that we normally don't see, is because you actually can pick up a lot more. The barrier to actually describing it, I don't think, is our physical, our physical orientation, our bandwidth. It's our social conditioning to think this is real, this is not real, push this away, this isn't real. You didn't see that dog man over there. You didn't see that Bigfoot while you were having to pick it. I mean, the research shows, and we were talking about this, I believe, in the last show, in attentional blindness, the fact that you delete so much of what's coming in, even to your conscious mind, from your physical senses. So RVs go in the opposite direction. It says stop deleting so much. And what that means is we're all picking up a lot more than we're actually conscious of. RV is just training how not to delete, not to push it away, and not to ignore it.
Got it. Okay, so Simeon, tell our audience, if you would please, about, I know you're on a little bit of a hiatus and you're about to start some more classes, I think you said in the fall. So why don't you tell our audience about the classes you have available online and the ones you're going to do in the fall?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so some people like to train on their own, and I created over a period of time these video courses, kind of a free one, which anyone can go through, because people often say, I just want to try it. So I put together about 6 or 7 videos. These are all at virtualviewing.org. You can try the free class out. A 20 video class, the inside class. And then I recorded every little thing I know about the topic and all the ways it's applied to map dowsing and sort of different applications. And I created what I called the master class, which is 50 videos, because there are some people, Bob, who like to do it on their own, who don't want a classroom setting. There are other people who say, I've spent enough time in front of a screen. I want to take a live class with you at a physical location, or at least do a Zoom class. So I do the live classes also, which I think the last time I did it a couple of months ago is over 6 weeks or so. And we meet in a Zoom setting online and we do targets. Now, I guess my preference is actually a live physical class where I can see exactly what people are writing down on the page. We can do one-on-one. People can break up into groups, monitor and viewer. I prefer that. Obviously, during the past couple of years, it wasn't practical for people to get on planes and to come out and to live classes in small rooms with each other. So we did things over Zoom, and I learned to expand it to do it that way. So I will be doing some of those classes again in the fall, where we do it over Zoom. And I'm actually planning in October to have a live class, partly about RV, partly about resonance, partly about cryptids and what we learned from crop circles up in Estes Park. An actual live class again, where we do a little bit of all of this and show how it's connected. I think there are advantages and disadvantages to any of the applications. Doing self-paced video, for many people, that's the most practical thing, because they may not be able to fit into your Zoom schedule. They may work in the evening or when you're teaching the class. So there's just strengths and weaknesses, I think, as everyone knows who's listening right now, to learning in different ways. And I think it's good to have all these different modalities, because some people will prefer one over the other.
Yeah, so I want to recommend the free 6 videos because Simeon gives a fairly high level overview of what is RV and a few simple things you can try all on your own to kind of whet your appetite. And it did. So after my appetite was whetted, Simeon told us that the course would not be available into the fall. And being a little bit impatient, we jumped in on the longer course that you do self-paced. I believe that given that experience and it being successful will allow us going into a class to be better prepared and more enthusiastic about jumping into it, because 6 weeks is a long time for people to kind of go through stuff, and they need some kind of head of steam to push all the way through to the end.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, Bob. This takes a lot of fortitude and persistence. You know that because you've done some of this training. Right. With anyone that you work with. RV could be one of the most difficult things you ever learn to do, because your mind is conditioned to go the other way, to listen to the loud signals. But it's worth it, because to really get to know how things work, how you perceive reality and what you've been deleting, how much more information's there. I mean, didn't you find it worth it to push through it and to see
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like anything, you put some effort into it and you'll realize, wow, I had more ability than I thought I had. And it kind of opens doors, like it did for me, other subjects, other areas. You start wondering, well, what else is true that they didn't tell me about? And you realize there's a lot and a lot of different directions to go. And it's about fine tuning, these things that the nature already built into us.
Well, I also have this kind of theory and not belief and now experience that says, if you're around extremely talented people, they rub off on you. So if you're around RVers, you watch them, you learn from them by watching them do it. And I think other things are like that too. And I think there's some really subtle things that we pick up when we are around people who have an ability or are experiencers, in the sense that they have been through something and somehow they impart some of it to us. I had that with Bledsoe and I've had it with Lala. So I'm just telling you, I believe that very strongly, and Dave. So I believe very strongly that something about being around people that are already doing it really helps.
Yeah. It's like a positive hitchhiker effect. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's an important part, as we got about 5 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. But I think that's an important part, because Simeon, the one thing that I've noticed is I can be sitting around with people or hanging out, watching a hockey game or a baseball game or something along those lines, and nothing happens. I'm not feeling anything. But the minute I start getting around people who are, let's call it, in tune, okay, all of a sudden I'm fired right up, just like something is sparked in me. What causes that?
Well, again, I would say that goes back to resonance. We sort of become like the frequencies and the resonance of the people and the living things that we're around. It rubs off on us because we're alive and we all have our own frequency in a very real sense. And you sort of absorb the other frequencies that you're around. So you should sort of be very selective of what you want to be exposed to and who you want to be exposed to. And if you're around people that push the envelope, I mean, I'd like to believe I'm one of those sorts of people, you'll find yourself pushing the envelope a little bit more. And there's nothing but good things that come from pushing the envelope a little more in a, in a controlled, careful, intelligent way. And that's what this whole journey has been for me, is how much else is real that you didn't know about, that nobody told you about. And you're around it all the time. Isn't it a shame to go through life, your whole life, without knowing what you're around? What else is in our space with us right here that we're not really aware of? And especially that society said, well, we're not going to tell you about. RV sort of pushes that envelope. Ingo was a great teacher for all of us. He was the pioneer of viewing the moon. And he also had a Mars project, as we learned about recently at the last IRVA conference, which I attended, via Zoom. He had 3 RV sessions projects about viewing Mars. And they were viewing structures on Mars. We heard from some of the people that had participated. None of us knew about this until I didn't hear about it till a couple of weeks ago. It never made it into his book. But so you surround yourself by people that intelligently push the envelope, and you'll learn more about yourself. That's my experience too.
Bob, 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So, Simeon, recently, you push forward on Amazon and other places, opening minds at a very reduced rate, which I want to highly recommend to people. Tell us quickly, if you can, what was the goal and in writing Opening Minds, because it covers some interesting topics.
Yeah, well, it started out as an RV book. I was originally going to write a book about some of these RV sessions that I've been involved with, where I saw people do, it's even double blind, and they reproduce the target. They say exactly what's in the picture. And then, these, like the Washington Monument session. And you're right. I had this book until yesterday. It was free Kindle download for 5 days, just as a 20th celebration, anniversary celebration. But when I went to England and I saw the crop circles, and people were doing spontaneous RV and crop circles, I mean, they'd literally draw the ones that would show up the next day and have these really interesting experiences. And then some of the RVers would see orbs in the room when they were doing a session, Bob. And these were seen around crop circles. Or if I saw one myself, I realized there was some connection between what seemed like different topics. One was a structured type of resonance, crop circles. One was a less structured. But I realized there was a commonality between some of these, what we call paranormal phenomena. And then I realized they really should go in the same book, that there was something else going on with reality that I had never heard about before studying RV and crop circles. And
I believe it, because, like the golden ratio is everywhere.
There you go. There you go.
Fibonacci numbers are everywhere.
Yes.
Commonality all over the sacred geometries are everywhere. So if you look, you can see stuff, and these patterns are important, even if you don't know what they mean.
Fractal geometry, the golden ratio, like you're saying, Leonardo da Vinci knew about this. People knew about this a long time ago. You realize there's some underlying knowledge which we had forgot as Western society, and it was connected to these so-called paranormal phenomena, even going to UFOs, that there was a really big mystery here. And that to find out what's going on, we have to let go of some of these older paradigms and really look at the newer evidence, and sort of make sense of why.
Yeah, I think T. Allen Greenfield has been a guy who has heavily influenced a lot of us to think about these interconnecting relationships, and that's really what underlies his secret cipher of the UFOnauts, is all these weird relationships, and he's figured out a way to do some calculations to reveal them.
It's incredibly intricate, and there's so many layers, but there is so much we don't know yet, because we weren't taught it from a kind of a mechanistic Newtonian paradigm. It just wasn't there. And it's based, as you're saying, golden section, Fibonacci series, and all of that. So, yeah.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to get a hold on right there as we're through hour number 1. Hour number 2 coming up: remote viewing, crop circles, UFOs, paranormal, wherever it goes. Science Bob has control of the conch tonight. Spaced Out Radio with Science Bob and Dr. Simeon Hein continues on Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Like
we're clear.
I'll give you an example of something I learned today, which I never expected, that the Ariel school incident was actually Muppets. It was
Yes.
Jim Henderson's Muppets. This is what I learned.
That's your
You're
buddy Mick
kidding.
West.
That was what the big headline on UFO Twitter today was. It was that it was all puppets. And as we learned from some of our UFO researchers, that the school children at Ariel School actually saw Muppets, and they thought they were extraterrestrials, and this is all it was. So
Yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I think John Mack traveled half the world to talk about hand puppets.
Muppets. Wouldn't
I
it
mean,
be?
UFO Twitter is a garbage dump.
I don't think anyone bought into it, but there were some people we know out there, I won't mention their names, who were proposing this. They said, guys, for a second, just consider it might have been puppets. I mean, just suspend your idea. And maybe that's what people have been seeing, that they thought were, extraterrestrials visiting them, were actually puppets. Puppets that somehow manifest themselves in your room, go through the walls, and show up en masse at a schoolyard. Also other schools, Westall, Australia, and so forth. But anyway,
Yep.
I'm kidding, but that was what we were expected to believe today if we were reading Twitter.
I gotta go toss a load of clothes in.
Yeah, sure. We'll see you back in a second. Well, guys, since I have the mic, I think we should have a musical interlude. What do you say?
Ooh, play Freebird.
Yes, right. This was kind of popular in the last.
I really digged it the last time you were here. Knock it out of the park, man.
Beautiful.
All right. Be back in one sec.
Hi, I'm Dave. Hey, where's the other piece of art there, Dirty Filth?
I was going to draw a quick crop circle painting, but we got this guy up here. Hold on 1 second here. Ugh. Whoops. That's terrible. Clunk. Whammo.
Well, that was yesterday's.
Oops,
What's
that's the other
today?
one. Flip her over. Handy UFO guide.
Oh, very nice.
It could also be it's just basically swamp gas is what you're looking at.
Very nice. Very nice.
I had to go look at some strange things, and this is what we came up with. A whole bunch of swamp gas.
Very nice. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome, Dave.
Very nice.
Pretty good show you're having tonight.
Tonight's a power show, man. Absolute power show with Power Art, Power Simeon, Power Bob, Power Dave. All right. We got 10 seconds here. Thank you to Linda, Ken, Lala, Thomas, and Kira for the amazing super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do. Here comes hour number 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. We say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. And the Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tractor. Tractor is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Yeah, the password is actually Karst. Karst is your password. The Clam changed it at the last minute. All right, tonight, Science Bob and Friends continues for the next 60 minutes here on the Mighty SOR. Joining us tonight is Dr. Simeon Hein, remote viewing specialist. He's into crop circles, into everything that is abnormally normal. And we're having a good time tonight. Science Bob, you enjoying tonight's show?
I'm loving it. So there's so many questions to ask Simeon, but I'm gonna yield, Dave. You try one.
All right. We've touched a lot on remote viewing, and Simeon, I'm very curious about a lot of the aspects of remote viewing, astral travel. To me, they're one of the same. Do you agree with that?
Not exactly the same, but they're part of the same spectrum of phenomena. And the reason we know that's true is the first test subject at SRI with Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ was Uri Geller. Everyone knows Uri Geller and his feats of psychokinesis. He was also an outstanding RVer. There is that really excellent film about RV that everyone needs to watch. It's called Third Eye Spies, created independently by Lance McGwier and Russell Targ. And it's the best RV documentary ever put together, as far as I'm concerned. Third Eye Spies. And it starts with their investigation of Uri Geller. He was only here for 6 weeks because the U.S. government was concerned that he wasn't a U.S. citizen, and national security, he was an Israeli citizen, and so forth. So they discontinued working with him. But in the initial episodes, he could do PK. He could do RV. They actually have clips of him viewing things. Bob, you were talking about Layla getting 100%. Well, Uri would get everything right are almost perfect, one after the other. And initially, guys, they did not start with coordinates and viewing distant targets and map targets like they did with Ingo when he insisted that they try coordinates. Initially, they only thought it was going to work with objects in boxes. And they had Yuri viewing things in boxes, opaque, so you couldn't see what was in there. And he would inevitably describe what was inside the box. And they have the footage of him actually at SRI, and he goes like, okay, and he would just say what it was, and it would be correct. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. When they were working with Yuri, they encountered cryptids around SRI. We've all heard of this happening in Skinwalker and Lukatsky's book with Knapp and Keller, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, and the Dino Beavers, and then seeing dogmen in their backyards in Maryland and their kids seeing them. And then the kids' friends started seeing the cryptids in the backyard. Well, this actually started with Yuri, and that should make you wonder. What they saw were some researchers who had worked with Yuri would wake up and see huge crows at the foot of their bed inside their homes with, the windows had been closed. They encountered strange entities. Aports would show up. I believe it was either Russell or Hal's lapel pins showed up that they had been missing for months. One of them showed up in ice cream that they bought at the beach, and another one flew out of the sky and landed at their feet. So you had aports, cryptids, even a small UFO. One of the scientists, I believe at Lawrence Livermore Lab, if I'm not mistaken, saw a small UFO flying around the lab. So what does this tell us? That these phenomena are all connected in some way, that there's another underlying reality that once you sort of break through, whether it's through RV or an interest in other phenomena that are related to this, it all takes you to the same place, whether you're ready for it or not. And that includes a really different cast of characters than we're used to. Obviously, the listeners on the show are familiar with these characters. Where they reside, it's another sort of space around us. And somehow being involved, Dave, with RV connects you to these other phenomena. And again, with crop circles, there are some examples I know where people had spontaneous remote viewing of crop circles that wouldn't show up until the next day, just while they were in another circle. It drew really accurate drawings of them. I have it in the book. So what it shows us is that we're surrounded. This is one explanation by parallel realities, multiverse, and somehow there's bleed through from these, and it can actually physically come through, and you see other entities around you. Now, you can call this the hitchhiker effect if you want. To me, it's a type of multidimensional resonance, and it's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's the kind of the answer why astral travel could be connected to RV. They sort of feel like the same thing. But once you engage in any of these, whether it's astral travel or RV or anything sort of in between, because Dave, I actually don't think you're with RV. I'm fairly convinced you're not physically traveling anywhere. I think you're, again, going back to the radio analogy we've been using, you're picking up frequencies. But these phenomena to me seem interrelated. And that's what I'll always believe until someone shows me evidence to the contrary.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. So, Simeon, let's talk about some of your other works. What was the intent and goal in a really interesting book, Planetary Intelligence?
Yeah. So this book, Planetary Intelligence, thanks for asking about it. People would ask me, Bob, over and over, how do I get better at RV? Right? They would want to know, what do I need to do? Do I need to buy some expensive equipment? Do I need to take a certain drug? Or is there, you get this question a lot. Does alcohol help RV? Which doesn't seem to be the case. What makes you better at RV? The one thing that I know that seemed to make me better at it was getting closer to the way nature actually works, to be a little closer to the winds and the waters and the trees and the forest, to kind of get in the flow. I think the Japanese call it forest washing or something like that. Isn't there a term they have in Japanese? It's because we're all conditioned to be very sort of mechanistic to fit into modern temporal schemes of hours, minutes, and seconds. These things that Western society has invented. But there are other fractal patterns underneath that we're all a part of just like during an RV session, we learn to pay attention to more subtle signals. You can do that in your own life and pay more attention to subtler aspects of yourself, feelings, kind of perception, awareness of your environment. And I know the people at DIA would actually do this type of training, which actually even spies would go through, which is to do exercises where you'd actually learn to pay more of attention to your environment and not assume that just because you're in a restaurant, it's really a restaurant, right? Well, it's the same way with our lives. It's when you go out to pay attention a little more to cycles of the sun, the cycles of the moon. So planetary intelligence came out of basic, simple activities that you can do that just remind you that you're a physical being living on a planet which has its own cycles and rhythms and frequencies. And if you pay attention to those a little bit more, you'll learn to be a better observer of your environment and be more connected to. So that's where planetary intelligence came from. Yeah.
Okay, so I really liked Black Swan Ghosts. So tell us about that.
Well, as all of you know, when you get involved in these subjects, you know, I've said many times that RV is like a gateway drug to different topics. And part of the reason is you get very interesting people showing up to learn RV. And even going back to the Farsight Institute back in 1996, when I was an instructor there, we would have very interesting people show up who had worked with the government, for the government, as contractors or within NASA and so forth. And during breaks, they would all tell us UFO stories. Now, this was sort of a new thing for me back in the 90s. I mean, I just come out of graduate school. Well, as fate would have it, I kept running into more and more UFO witnesses. Some of them were in England. Some of them were here. People who I'd meet at conferences would tell me fantastic stories. People who'd worked for NASA or JPL. And they would all tell me they had proof positive. They had actually seen extraterrestrial wreckage and things like that. So I realized I've encountered so many of these UFO, ET, or crash wreckage witnesses. It's a whole nother book. Why did I call it Black Swan Ghosts? Because until very recently, I guess we would say the New York Times December 2017 article and Politico articles about the subject and about the Nimitz incidents and so forth, and OSAP and ATIP and all that, we weren't having much of a national discussion. I mean, I think we can all agree it's a little better than it was pre-2017, right? And so it's a black swan sort of event. It's something that society's pushed away. We haven't wanted to talk about it. These witnesses had never had anyone even want to listen to them before, for the most part. And it's a kind of a ghostly topic until the last few years, where we've decided, hey, we're going to start having a national discussion, even if a lot of it is still in classified House and Senate committees, which we're told. We don't know, because we're told this from the people who've worked in this field and come forward. You know, we all know we're talking about Elizondo and Mellon. But it's another, you know, guys, I'm actually not a physicist. I'm a sociologist. What do sociologists study? We study hidden events. We study the things that people don't want to talk about because they're afraid of the consequences to their social status, their economic standing, and so forth. And again, any of these topics we've talked about, from RV to UFOs, even things, crop circle research, and now cryptids, what you'll find when you talk to the witnesses is that they have a concern about being ridiculed, stigmatized, and laughed at by neighbors, colleagues, coworkers, and so forth. And again, that's another way in which these topics, ignoring the physics for a second, just from a sociological point of view, why these topics are connected. Because we've pushed it to the side, and the witnesses are often very reluctant to come forward because they think it's going to have a negative impact on their life in some way, more of a negative impact than a positive one. So that's just another way that you connect these topics, is people who've had experience with anything related to these subjects need some encouragement, and hopefully we'll get it now with some sort of congressional mandate, not just to encourage them to come forward, but to legally, make them come forward or give them protections to come forward. So we know what in the world is going on with reality around us. I mean, it's obviously a much bigger story. We're just at the tip of the iceberg right now. I mean, I'll tell you one example, and I put that in my most recent work. dark matter monsters. It's buried in there if you can find this story. I ran into a top level engineer that everyone would know if he wanted to come forward, who told me without a shadow of a doubt, 100%, kind of what like Gary Nolan was talking about recently in one of his interviews last week, that he had handled wreckage for some agency which he didn't want to name. And he knew, as someone who was very familiar with creating microelectronics, that this is no way this could have come from our planet with the level of technology we had. And that this was some sort of just highly advanced quantum technology that could reshape space-time. And we spent several days at a conference together, and he described for it to me, drew what it looked like under a scanning electron microscope, and never could get contact from him. He did not want to come forward. He's one of these people. There must be hundreds of these people out there who've seen this material, who, I mean, he was completely confident that this was from another part of the galaxy based on the isotopic elements in the material, the construction techniques, and especially the tiny scale of it. He said, we don't have technology yet on Earth that can create technology at that tiny scale of, electrons. It was just so small, and so he said, no, it wasn't made here. And also the zero gravity aspect to how it was made. So that's one of the things I actually mentioned in my most recent work. And I've come across these people over the years, and I know, Bob, you have too. And you just know that there's a much bigger reality that we're going to have a national discussion about at some point.
We need an entirely new ontology, and to undergo this massive epistemological revolution in order to kind of take all this in. And I just believe consciousness is fundamental. And the reason I say that is, as a quantum mechanics person, we've already discussed it. Nothing is real in standard quantum mechanics until your consciousness observes it. That tells you all of reality is nothing until consciousness takes a look at it. That's a big statement, but it says consciousness is at the bottom of everything.
Bob, that is the Copenhagen interpretation, what you're presenting there. Yep. And that is one way to look at it, but you're aware of the other interpretations too.
Yeah.
You know about Hugh Everett, and you know about relative states.
Hugh Everett and his multi-universe stuff is really, really interesting. And it is also a way of having all that stuff branch out. And we just can't see the other branches because we're living on one branch.
Yeah, it's right. And whether it's one or the other doesn't matter. It's that exactly what you're saying. We only see one branch at a time. The other branches are there. And there's many, many other branches. And, Bob, people used to joke that Copenhagen was also the disappearing worlds theory, which is all the other branches. Like you're saying, you're conscious of one branch and the other ones just disappear. But where do they go? So people like me believe that the other branches are actually there, even if you're not conscious of them, and you can view them. And that's what RV is somehow tuning into those other branches.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very so. I mean, look, a lot of people don't understand that mathematics allows for these growing spaces, and there's a construct which is used in quantum mechanics called Hilbert spaces. And these Hilbert spaces have many, many, many dimensions. They can be infinite dimensional. And this piece over here has no interaction with this piece over here. And so it's completely possible.
Yes. And one more thing, the newest interpretation of this that I've come across, Howard Wiseman and others, is the many interacting worlds view, which says that what we perceive as a quantum wave function is actually a product of slightly interacting parallel realities. Yeah. When they've done the simulations, it reproduces the quantum wave function pretty closely. So one way to look at it is it's not like they're separate quantum mechanics parallel. They're all actually the same thing. It's just how you look at it, whether you see it as a quantum wave function, the branches interacting a little bit slightly or not.
Well, you know that because they produce the same experimental results.
Yeah.
They are all the same and are just different perspectives. But as long as they produce the same, until we find some reason they don't produce an experimental result, they're all viable. Right now, they produce the same results.
They produce the same results. And what we need, though, and I think everyone listening will probably agree, for so long, science has pushed all these phenomena away that we call paranormal, right? They even give it another name, which Lou Elizondo has ridiculed over and over. Why call it paranormal when para is also used in parachute and paramedic? And all these phenomena that we've wanted to push away, we call paranormal and marginalize them. But let's say that's actually the fundamental reality, is things that bleed through, things that come from other realities that we normally don't have a lot of contact with, things that in their world, we're the ones that are paranormal, right? And so it seems to me where science needs to go is to stop being afraid of these topics and bring them forward to say, rather than try to disprove RV and to explain away cryptids as some sort of delusional psychosis of weird people, and that UFOs are actually just weather balloons. Everything that we're interested here on this show, that we've been able to show through so much evidence for decade after decade, it's been ridiculed, it's been stigmatized, and it's been marginalized. It's no wonder that people who are interested or have had experience with this don't want to come forward, right?
Yep.
But science needs to embrace all of this. And that's where it needs to stop denying the evidence. Stop saying, oh, these are not meteorites, as they did in the late 1700s. And so, oh, they're volcano stones, because there's no activity beyond the moon. Aristotle said it's static beyond the moon. There can't be stones falling from the sky because there are no stones in the sky. Well, our modern science is the same way with a lot of these topics. It's just, we know there can't be cryptids because, it's like Stanton Friedman used to say, don't confuse me with the facts, or research by proclamation. I'm just going to say this is delusional, or find some way to discount the evidence. I've seen them do this with RV, even though the evidence shows that when you do RV, as Bob said right at the beginning of the show, you get a higher percentage of hits than you should be getting if this is all random, right?
Right.
But it's the same way with all these topics. Science needs to get off its big hobby horse here, and instead of trying to discount the phenomena and ridicule the witnesses, how about coming up with a reasonable explanation of what would account for all this data? Now, it could be that consciousness creates the reality. It could be you have different branches, whatever it is. But we need to have a discussion that's based on reality, not on denying the evidence, or we're going to be just like those people that were denying meteorites in 1800.
May I jump in here for a quick second? Because we got about 90 seconds. You bring up a good point about scientists opening their mind, but what the public sees, Simeon, is people like Neil deGrasse Tyson coming out, making fun of these stories, making fun of these adventures. And when you have a media personality that large, it comes with a lot of pull on social media and with the television and radio and print audience. How do you combat that when the most popular scientist in the United States comes out and says, none of this is real. Stop wasting your time. We haven't been visited. Sure, there may be life out there somewhere, but it ain't here. I mean, this is very tough on a lot of people and on the public side.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Museum of Natural History. I was born in Manhattan on the Upper West Side, and my mom would take me to the Museum of Natural History all the time, where Neil Tyson deGrasse is based at. So you can, institutions since World War II have been paying scientists to be conformists, to toe the line, and to hide anomalies. And as long as the system has been rewarding people for that type of conformity, they won't want to take the risk of looking at new data. But, it was Hal Puthoff that said we're going to have a Sputnik moment if we don't get in line here and look at the data. So,
gentlemen, we got you for another half an hour. Science Bob, we got to get some audience questions next half hour as well. Science Bob and Friends with special guest, Dr. Simeon Hein. We continue to look at all weird, strange things from a scientific level tonight on Science Bob and Friends. We'll return to Spaced Out Radio right after this. This is a stellar show tonight.
Well, I mean, Simeon, you're an easy interview because you got so much interesting material. It takes almost no effort to put together a good show. And watch, the audience is going to have a ton of good questions, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've got a great audience too. It's partly we know our audience. Our audience love this. They ask great questions. They know what you're talking about. They read, and it's easy to talk to them. But guys, when I was in high school, I was 4 years on the debate team. I was co-captain, and I learned one thing: you follow the evidence. These topics have a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
Why? A lot of scientists are afraid of it. That's a good sociological issue.
Drives me nuts when scientists want to dismiss actual evidence. Look, I'm a Bayesian. You don't dismiss evidence. You factor it in with some level of belief, right? Yeah. And you can change your level of belief over time given the way the observations go. But you don't dismiss evidence. You weigh it differently.
Right. Yeah, and guys, every day that I wake up, I think that our society is going to have a train wreck if we don't start having a national discussion about these topics. You can't keep your head in the sand for over a century without getting so out of touch with reality that it becomes dysfunctional. You know what I'm saying? It's like a rubber band. You're pulling it back and you're pulling back. Eventually, it's going to snap forward. Now, the longer you take to let it go, the more force it's going to come forward when it finally snaps forward. And too many of these topics just have not had the level of attention they deserve with the data. It's too easy to be MIT and say that Fleischmann and Pons were just wrong without looking at why the labs that tried to reproduce Fleischmann and Pons couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Google attempted to reproduce cold fusion recently, and they said after 450 experiments they couldn't do it, but they've never shared their data. Well, if they don't share the data, we don't know why their particular palladium, which has to be released, from my knowledge of it, is very specifically doped with silver and a couple other elements to have the right types of cracks in it for the hydrogen, to kind of do what it has to do to form clusters. If they don't share their data, then we don't make any progress. So, anyway.
But isn't that the conspiracy? Talk about what you've seen, but never talk about how you got there?
I guess so. But if we don't say how we get there, you're going to have more and more people having contact with these cryptids, as you well know, Dave, and ordinary people, and they don't know what they experienced, and they're not going to talk about it to their neighbors. They're going to watch your show, which is great. They're going to watch this show. But if you don't have a collective discussion, we're going to end up like, where we were in the Middle Ages, where we're just going to say, well, it's either got to be the church or Aristotle, and we're not in. Back then they weren't interested in looking at data. It just had to see what fits Aristotle, what fits the church, and I don't think we want to go back to that, in my view. So.
Oh. I thought you were going to say a little bit more, and I shoved a cookie in my mouth.
No, I think I've said enough, guys. And the funny thing is, Bob, the thing about these books, I never know when a book is going to show up. Almost like it's like you gather so much information and new ideas. All of a sudden, you see the book in your mind's eye, and you see all the chapters. It doesn't happen to me very often. So far, only 4 times my whole life. It just shows up. You feel like you gotta do it. It's weird. But that's where those books came from. So,
yep,
we got some good questions coming here too from our audience.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
I don't have all the answers either, but I know I have a lot of the questions. It's the questions.
I think we all have the questions.
Yeah. And by the way, Dark Matter Monsters has been #1 in electromagnetism for like 5 days now. It's really, pretty much hovering around. It's amazing that a book about cryptids is top in electromagnetism. I'm kind of flattered by that, right? Ordinary scientists are looking in the electromagnetism category with books about engines and, Maxwell's equations. And there's a picture of Bigfoot on one of the covers. So they must have wondered what happened to the reality.
All right. Thank you tonight to Marty, Kira, Thomas, Lala, Ken, and Linda for the super chats. Wonderful way to support what we do on this show. Thank you to everybody who's given us a thumbs up. We're one away from 100. Get your thumbs up in, everyone, because it really does help with our algorithms. We really appreciate it. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go till the top of the hour. Science Bob and Friends with Dr. Bob McGwier, formerly of Virginia Tech University, and joining us as a special guest, Dr. Simeon Hein, hanging on out, talking remote viewing. Bob, we're going to get right into some audience questions for you guys.
Please go ahead.
All right, let's start off with Bree here, who is asking, Simeon, have you experienced the energy at Nederland, Colorado yet?
Yes, I've been up there a few times. It's only, it's about half hour up from Boulder, up the road there. It's an area where they have cryptid encounter sightings, here and there. Interesting place. Up in the mountains, way high, a couple thousand feet higher than here.
Did you see any cryptids?
I have never seen a cryptid yet, guys. I'm sure there'll be a first time. I've spoken to so many people, again, like Black Swan ghosts. Just as an aside, I encountered so many Bigfoot witnesses in Colorado since I moved here. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that this was an important topic, but I've encountered many people who have encountered Bigfoot one way or another. And finally, they told me their story. Maybe they hadn't talked to anyone before. And it's amazing how many people have actually heard the tree knocks or seen something or footprints. It's fascinating. And the Sasquatch Outpost in Bailey has a whole map. It shows you how widespread it is, even if you don't hear about it every day.
Lizzie says she's had a lot of paranormal and past life experiences there, which is really cool.
Oh, well, that's great. Is Lizzie a Colorado native who frequents? Yeah. I can see it.
Yeah, she lives in Denver.
Fantastic, yeah.
It's funny that you say that. Myself, living in a logging community, it is. There's my moth now. Strolling over. Yeah,
moth person.
Yeah, I got Mothman in the studio right now. Maybe he'll come by for an interview. But the one thing about like living in a logging community like I do, Simeon, I mean, every chance I get, I talk to the loggers. Every chance I get, and I'll just say, hey, you're out in the mountains, you're in these areas. What's the strangest thing you've seen? And it opens up the conversation. Now, a lot of them will say, well, I haven't seen anything, but my friend told me, and that's how I find a lot of the areas on where to go, because the loggers will know.
Yes.
They're the ones pushing the roads through. And power line people working on those big, giant power lines, that's another great source to have.
That is so true, Dave. I spoke to a nurse recently in the Northwest, and she said she's had a lot of loggers over the years in the hospital, some who go back to the 1940s and 30s, way back, old timers, said the exact same thing. they would say to her, we never, outside the logging community, we don't talk about this because we don't want people to think we're weird, but this is what we see. Exactly the same thing. And she said the same thing. They see things out there they normally don't tell people about.
The best story I heard happened in 2018 here in my community, about an hour and 20 minutes southeast of me, where a logging crew was literally half the crew was scared away. They refused to work that logging cut line because every morning when they would show up at about, say, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and in summertime, they're getting there at 3, 4, 5 o'clock, and they are working until 9, 10 o'clock at night. They said in that time when they were gone, by the time they came back, there was footprints all over the place. Gear had been turned over, barrels had been turned over. The one crew had this giant tractor that had a dent on it, and the boulder that was thrown against that tractor was estimated to be between 300 and 400 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, and it left a giant dent in it. So it wasn't just something pushing against it. It was thrown. And those guys got scared. And I was talking to one member of that logging crew on there. He said, we had to finish that job shorthanded because there was literally guys saying, nope, not doing this. But the forestry has to keep it quiet. They have no choice, because what it's going to do is the minute they find, if they come out and say, hey, we need some investigators here, government comes in, their scientists come in, they shut down the area. Right. And now you've lost a multi-million-dollar contract over some woo.
There you go. Just like pilots, civilian pilots don't report UFO. Yeah. I've heard these stories too. And I had some witnesses, even a friend who I knew for so long. And she said she had huge rocks thrown at her and her friend just hiking in the Rockies. I mean, she said if we had been hit by those, we would have been killed. They never actually hit them, but they came close enough that it was really creepy. So, yeah.
Oh, very sure. Very sure. All right, let's get to another question from YJ. It was asking, is science rigged? Example, flawed peer review, lack of integrity in where finding is allocated, scientists being muzzled.
Well, Bob can chime in. I would say it's not science that's the problem. Science is neutral. Science is evidence-based as we know it now. It's the institutions that reward conformity. To me, that's the real issue here. It doesn't reward innovation. It rewards towing the line. As a graduate student, Bob probably has experienced this too. You're told to just don't go out on the fringe, stick with mainstream topics. You do want to be successful in this field, don't you? Stick to the things that are going to make you successful from an external point of view. Now, I was brought up to think that success is being your own person and following the truth. It's not a popularity contest. That's just how I was brought up, is to really be not go for the popularity. But I'm afraid too many scientists, it's the way the funding is set up and so forth that just rewards kind of not pushing the envelope too much. And that's why people will say to me, I could talk about this, but it would ruin my career. And unfortunately, the farther you go along in any profession, there's going to come a point where you're not going to take risks anymore because you've invested so much in your profession as is. And now you have bills to pay and a family and mortgages that you're not going to take those risks anymore. And it's easier to say, what you're saying is true, but I'd have to reevaluate my whole worldview. And I don't want to do that, which is what I've heard people say.
Bob, I want to hear you chime in on this.
Well, I'm a little bit waffly. I just don't quite know how to comment on it. So I'm going to leave it. Don't think I have a cogent comment for once in my life.
You chicken. Yeah, I mean, I can see that, and I'll call you out on that. A great question, YJ. Let's go to Tony over in the UK. He's got a pair of questions. Simeon, is the moon occupied?
Based on a lot of research and evidence and RV sessions, it would seem to be, at least some of the time. That's what the RV sessions point to. And people that have worked for NASA have said that they've seen, Greer's witnesses and others that worked at, was it the National Photo Interpretation Center and all these places that I guess they work with the NRO. It's to look at pictures and stuff, say that they've seen the structures, and we've seen some reproductions of those. So it would seem to indicate to me, based on everything I've seen, that at least there's structures there. It was occupied at one time, if not now. And we haven't gone back there, so maybe that's why.
Well, let's maybe we're scared off. Second question from Tony. Apart from humans, who or what is making these crop circles?
Yeah, so the crop circle phenomena is actually more complex than anyone wants to believe, either on either side, that they're all man-made or they're all made by ETs. I know evidence for all types, and even in dark matter monsters, I have a photo of one that I saw in 2010 at Westbury Whitehorse, which was clearly created by plasmas or whirlwinds or something like that. I could just see from the way the wheat was splayed out from not spiral, splayed out, that there had to be something that came down and pushed that wheat out, or plasmas, which people who in rural areas, you've seen these whirlwinds and so forth. But in Black Swan Ghost, I have a witness, Louise Voves, who's passed on now, but I got to speak to her and videotape her testimony of seeing a craft while they were picking huckleberries in Usk, Washington. Her brother made huckleberry products for a living. She said that disc, before it left, went right low over the meadow and flattened those plants. She said 90 degrees, flat as a pancake. To me, that seems a lot like what we've heard around circles, crop circles. So yeah, people have made them. I've been out with the groups that make them, and there's no doubt that people now make them, but there are other types too that are not made by people. And, we have those witnesses also. So I think that there's, a variety of causes of crop circles. So beyond people, you would have vortex plasmas like Takeaki Matsumoto, the Japanese nuclear physicist, mentions in this book just came out about a week ago, Steps to the Discovery of Electronuclear Collapse. He talks about crop circles in this book, having seen them around thunderstorms. This is his collected papers going back to 1990. And he says that they would be a product of ball lightning, since that's what his topic is, especially related to microball lightning and cold fusion and low energy nuclear reaction. But he says they would see them up in the island of Hokkaido after thunderstorms, crop circles. So you get plasmas, you have ball lightning, you have UFOs, plus people.
All right, let's get to another question from our audience here. And this comes from Eric with a K, where we are his second favorite show. We're number 2, people. We are number 2. And he wants to know, Bob, Eric with a K wants to know your Bigfoot story.
Well, I don't really have a Bigfoot story, other than I went out and saw some footprints once or twice, but I've never seen the hairy thing.
Well, that's a pretty honest answer right there. You got to go out with Super Duke at World Bigfoot Radio.
I want to add one thing to that, guys. There's a new independent documentary came out. It's called A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. You can see it on Vimeo and Amazon streaming services. I really like this new documentary because in the final half hour, it's all interviews with psychiatrists and psychologists. And they're not saying these people are delusional. What they're saying is the opposite. And it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show with RV and deleting information that doesn't fit into your consensus reality. What these psychiatrists and psychologists said is, it's not just that you won't talk about it. you will literally forget about it. Your mind has so many mental defense mechanisms against things that seem unreal. You could literally have a Bigfoot encounter somewhere out in the woods or wherever you go and not remember it later because your conscious mind will have pushed it back. This is something we know from RV is true. So that's another aspect to it. Some of us could have had encounters and we simply don't remember it.
Right. Okay, let's get to Brazelhoff here, who's asking, what about the phrase scientism? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's a good one. And I've often thought that the treatment, a lot of what we call paranormal, sometimes it's a little scientistic, that it sort of has the mantle of what looks like what would be a scientific investigation. I think Project Blue Book would have fit into that. Certainly the Condon Committee report, which was done right up the road at CU here, where it has the trappings of a scientific investigation, but and this is my take on the question. There could be other aspects to it, but the researchers have already reached their conclusion ahead of time. They're just sort of making, they got the beakers and the white lab coats and, what we would have thought of as science in the 50s and 60s. And it kind of looks scientific, but it's actually not really questioning the fundamental assumptions. I think Bob would agree. The reason you have data and you have statistics is you actually almost want to be proven wrong. You want your own ideas actually to go up against the data and see, does it support it or not? That's really what it is, to be quite objective about it. So there's a difference between actually doing that and having an open mind, being open to the data and the evidence versus just kind of acting as if you're doing science, but having reached the conclusion ahead of time, which I think we've seen a lot of for the past couple decades around these topics, which is why we haven't had any real new revelations about it until past few years, I'd say.
All right, let's get to another question. This one from Jules, who is asking, please speak on the similarities of cryptids and poltergeist and coherent matter phenomena. And she calls you Sweets.
Yes. Well, Jules and I met. Jules took my RV class, Bob, live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, a couple of years ago. We spent 3 great days together with a small group there on beautiful Lake Coeur d'Alene. And this is how Jules and I met. We actually ended up staying at the same Airbnb. So thanks for asking that question, Jules, because that's what Dark Matter Monsters is all about. Guys, this is really what I saw looking at all these phenomena. There are too many similarities between what seem like separate phenomena to say that they're separate. And what really got me was looking at some of the phenomena related to cold fusion, low energy nuclear reaction, all aspects of what seem to be a fifth state of matter. Jules mentions it here, coherent matter, a state of matter where the particles are entangled with each other like ball lightning, and what we call paranormal phenomena. And just one aspect of that we often see. How often do you hear around cryptids, poltergeists, and other phenomena that it gets suddenly cold? You often hear this around cryptid sightings that right before the forest got really quiet to the point where no one even heard any crickets, right? You hear this around UFO sightings. It's in the NICAP report, Strange Effects of UFOs, and so forth. Ghost haunted sites and so forth. And the big surprise to me, looking into cold fusion Leonard and the Lockheed Martin patents and so forth, is that these same phenomena happen around coherent matter too. Is you get sudden temperature changes, you get your batteries and cameras shorting out, which I have personally seen many times around crop circles. Who would have thought that cryptids were related to crop circles? And the only way that could be true is if there's some fundamental underlying principle under all these phenomena that we call paranormal. I'm not saying that Bigfoot is making the crop circles or dogmen either, or any of their cryptid friends. What I'm saying is that there are some similarities between these that show us that all of these phenomena that we call paranormal are actually another state of matter, which I'm calling here coherent matter, and other researchers in the field of condensed matter have called coherent matter. It's where the particles, the subatomic particles, chemical elements, they all attain the same frequency and temperature and actually act like sort of one thing, which is what ball lightning does. And this is why you see orbs and ball lightning around crop circles, around cryptids and other phenomena, UFOs, haunted sites, is because it's actually showing us that there's another state of matter here. And I think we've, as a society, we've actually had some contact through it, through these, huge fusion tokamak reactors, where you try to create these really strong magnetic fields to contain a really high temperature fusion reaction like would go on in the sun. But the big story here is nature is already doing it in its own way, which is why you see orbs and ball lightning and all these anomalous phenomena in these different settings, which, on the surface seem like different phenomena, but actually have the same underlying principles at work. At least I think so. So great question. Thanks.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. We're caught up on the questions so far, I believe. Pardon me. We got one more here. This one from Tony. Simeon, in your opinion, who collaborated with humans to make the Great Pyramid?
It's a great question. I don't know the answer apart from the RV sessions we've done on it, where it did seem when we went back in time and did the Sphinx, Great Pyramids, and so forth. I mean, you can use viewing to do this, and you don't have, at the end of the session, you don't have the confirmation you would have from a target where you have tangible evidence in the present to really investigate. But it did seem that there was frequencies involved, sound and so forth. So it wouldn't be surprising that, there's just other aspects to it technologically. Maybe other beings were involved in that showed us how to do that. All I have is the RV sessions, and they did suggest some other technology was involved. So maybe it came from somewhere else.
Maybe.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. It wouldn't be surprising. You have these pyramids all over the planet. Also Teotihuacan in Mexico, which I visited a couple times. I mean, how did people back then know how to do this? Because from what I've learned about it, the tolerances of the way the stones were put together rival what we, in some cases, exceed what we can do today.
Well, so, that and the two identical pyramids at Giza, they are aligned more perfectly than I think we can do today.
Is that right? So that's kind of astounding. It should make you think a little bit.
Totally. Bob, we got 2 minutes left. Where do you want to go with Simeon?
Simeon, what have you got coming up in the immediate future in the way of appearances?
Yeah, so I'll be on Coast to Coast with George Knapp. I think 22nd, really early in the morning, 12 to 2 a.m. Pacific. Jeff Rent's coming up on Friday night. And I'll be doing a live seminar in Estes Park, October 21st to the 23rd, where we'll be covering these topics. We'll go a little deeper into some of the science behind it, do some RV and some cryptid night watches up there near Estes Park at some of these hotspots I've been told about where to go to see some of these creatures. So I'll put some information on my website. That's newcrystalmind.com, my blog. I'll be putting information up there. If you want to come to Estes Park for that weekend, and we will cover all these topics in some
that's
detail.
Great. Dave, what do you got?
Well, you know what, Simeon, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. And once again, we're going to bridge this to keep on happening a little bit more frequent, because I think it's good for our audience. It's good for everyone involved to have someone of your open-mindedness and perspective on this. And, like I said at the beginning of the show, I always feel smarter after you're on, and that's a tough feat for me.
Well, thanks, guys. But I also have to say, both of you have really helped me throughout the years listening to this show. I've learned so much from both of you, too. So, again, it's all of us working together. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to make some progress, because it's synergistic between all of us who are involved here.
20 seconds. Jonathan Davies wants to know if you've ever remote viewed Mount Hayes.
Oh, hey, Jonathan. That actually, no, but that's what Pat Price did. We know about those 4 viewings that Pat Price did. He came in one day, I think, and I think he just came on his own and said to Hal and Russell, hey, I did these sessions, Mount Hayes and Mount Zeal, right? in Australia, and Mount Hayes is the one in Alaska, and 2 other mountain ranges. So look up that right viewing.
All right. It's Dr. Simeon Hein on Science Bob and Friends. Dr. Bob McGwier, we say goodnight to you. And coming up next, we're heading to the swamp. Then the UFO Report with Tim Senor. Spaced Out Radio's hour number 3 is next. Great show, gentlemen.
Well, thank
Great
you.
show.
Simeon, it was great. We entertained
Thank
our
you.
audience.
Sorry?
We entertained our audience.
We did a good job. We did a good job. We really did. Even Dirty Filth looked good on that one.
Yes, some great drawings there. And Bob, stay in touch if you have any other questions about RV. I've really enjoyed, our dialogue so far. It's always an interesting learning experience.
Thank
and
you.
maybe I'll let you know when we do the Zoom classes in fall, September sometime.
Great.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
we'll be
gentlemen.
prepped and ready.
Okay,
All right,
folks. Take
Science
care.
Bob, we'll talk
Thanks.
to you tomorrow.
Yep.
Here, guys.
I'll be on the road until after you normally call.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay, take care. Good night.
Good night, Simeon. What a great show. Brilliant man. Brilliant man, Simeon Hein. That's for sure. Thank you again, Kira, for that second awesome super chat. Dirty Filth, we'll turn it over to you here because I know you love this part of the show.
Oh yeah, I gotta.
Dirty Filth still here?
I think I'm here,
Oh, okay, good.
Dave. Oh, there he goes. What if I was about to say I'm being abducted by aliens, and then Dave just gets up and walks away? I guess I'm just gonna keep drawing little cute ghosts while we're sitting here. So why not? That's the Kentucky Goblin. I just wanted to call it the Goblin just for goods and giggles. Here we'll draw a little ghosty here. I have no idea why I'm drawing ghosts. It's not like Merle's on or anything. This ghost is indifferent. And we'll draw one more. Not be able to get it all done, Dave's running the dogs, doing what he's doing. One more little ghosty guy here. He's full of Pac-Mans. I don't like that one. All right, well, I hope everyone's night's doing good. My night is incredible. I can't see the chat room. Wait a minute. There's an option inside StreamYard. That's cool technology, everybody. Alrighty here. Let's get the old blue out and paint up this little ghosty. Let's contemplate. Ooh, it's still slimy green there. This ghost is wondering, when he orders pizza, is he going to get wings or is he going to get breadsticks to go with them? That's his terrible dilemma for the evening. That's why it looks like he's all grumpy pants. Personally, I get the Caesar salad just for good measure, because you can have that in the morning. Ooh, little ghosty guy. You know what? I'll save these suckers and I'll bring them to Vegas and everybody can pass it around. It can be like one of those oh boy, what do you call them? Geocaching things. Except they'll probably die in about a month. Well, we'll go back to the old Pac-Man guy. I don't actually have a neon blue or anything. See if I cut him open so he's a little more Pac-Man guy. No, now it just looks like he has legs. Oh, he's got legs. He's got legs, everybody. Let's get little tiny feet there. There we go. Whip that sucker right out of there. Whoop. A little bit of overdraft there on that sucker.
All right. Dirty filth,
Turned
what's
it into
going
a
on?
monster. I was drawing some ghosts, and then I did do ghosts, and I turned this thing into a monster. It's just terrible, Dave. I mean, look at this thing. It's gonna
What is
haunt
that?
you forever. I don't
That
know.
That looks like a stoned Mario Brothers mushroom.
A Goomba?
Sure.
I don't know what it is. I was gonna draw a ghost.
feel like
I did two
jumping
little
on it.
ghosts.
Hey,
Can't
Mickle
jump on
Pickle
it.
Toes. How you doing, buddy?
Pickle toes.
Yeah, Mickle Pickle Toes. His name is Bumpy. Bumpy. Hello, Bumpy. All right, we got about 1 minute to go here. What a great show tonight. Absolute great show with Dr. Simeon Hein and our good friend Science Bob, who will be back next month, probably on the round table as well. We having a good time, people?
Look at that.
All right. I see little Timmy Senor walking into his studio, giving us a wave. He's almost ready. We got about 30 seconds to go here. And then we're going to get to the Swamp Dweller. Yeah, what a good night. What a good night of radio tonight, people. Fantastic. Thank you, Linda, Marty, Ken, Kira ×2, Lala, and Thomas for the super chats. Here we go with hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Let's get it going. Hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Glam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Karst. Karst is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight as we head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another journey into the swamp.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. Back in the early 2000s is when this story took place. I was married with 3 kids. 2 were elementary aged, and the oldest was middle school age. My then husband had started a new job, and it was the 3rd shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I ended up being the only adult 5 days a week. Everything was great with the kids and us. We were in the middle of remodeling our bathroom. It was gutted to replace everything, including the floor. We had moved into that house in 1998. And no odd or weird stuff happened. I started noticing the 2 youngest kids' room would be a disaster, with toys everywhere. We cleaned every evening, so I fussed at them for getting up and playing. They swore up and down that they didn't do it. If anyone has kids, they will understand that lying is hard for some kids. My youngest would overdo anything if she tried to lie about it, and I could tell that she was not lying. Anyways, cut to a month or 2 later and our bathroom was finished. Now I need to describe the bathroom layout for this to make sense. The shower and tub is immediately on the left when you walk into the room. Across the tub was the sink. If you walk past both, there was a faux wall between the tub and toilet. It was to hide the bathroom. I was still struggling with sleeping alone. I would get into chat rooms, dial up internet back then, to waste time. Cell phones were minimal and used for chat and calls. After chatting each night, it would be between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., so I would grab a shower to relax. This gets to the creepy part. Our new shower had 2 curtains, the clear inner liner and the outer fabric. This is essential to the story, I swear. While showering, it sounded like the bathroom door opened. The shower curtains would move from the air. I could see the outline of a person. I figured when my kids walked in to pee or something. I would call out to them, but get no response. I would peek out past the faux walls and see nobody. The first time it happened, I figured my oldest son was playing a trick. When I checked on the kids, they were all still dead asleep. I took a sleeping pill and went to bed. The next day, I told my husband about the experience, but he just said that I had dreamt it or my Ambien caused a hallucination. Maybe that would have been believable if it didn't happen every night. I began telling people in chat rooms and got dumb responses like, why shower so late? Has anyone died in your house? Do you have anything secondhand or potentially cursed that you might have bought or brought into the house recently? More people took me seriously than I expected. I doubted my own sanity at this point. So one person in the chat room was from the UK, and we were all online friends. She suggested that maybe something stirred up energy in our house when we remodeled. It did make sense because of the new bathroom. I figured I'd tell my hubby and go from there. Again, he just said I needed to sleep. When your partner doesn't believe you, it quickly turns into a fight, which in turn causes the energy to shift negatively. My youngest child, who can't lie, told me her stuffed toys and Beanie Babies were thrown at her the previous night. I didn't know how to respond or what action to take. I walked in from a quick trip to the market, and my oldest son asked me, "When did you get a cat?" I didn't. He explained that it was in our hallway where the bathroom and 3 bedrooms were. Our house was a 1-story and had a basement. He also said it walked into my then husband's room. He went to look for it, but never found it. So now, things are affecting my kids. My youngest son told me that he could hear someone talking to him in his ear at night, but could never see anybody. The toys in the living room would get dumped during the night, and my kids were scared. I never told them about my shower visitor because I didn't want to scare them even further. My oldest often would tell us about this cat that he saw multiple times. In 2010, we moved away from that house, but we did still have encounters until we left for good. I had a pervy ghost interrupt my showers 5 nights a week for years. I got semi-used to it. I was also told that from my info I shared that our hauntings were happening during the witching hour. My 3 kids and I moved into a decent place and felt safer. I, however, blessed the entire house, minus the oldest son's room, per request not to. I then used salt in doorways and windows. I did not put a line of salt at my oldest son's door. Either we're cursed or something follows us. We heard footsteps on the steps when no one was around them. My oldest son would regret not having his room cleansed or blessed. He said he would wake up in the middle of the night to shadows of something breathing in his ear. One day he said it felt like someone was right beside his ear and took the breath we take when getting ready to scream. It seemed like we were destined to be haunted. But again, nothing that happened would be on camera. We had an old porch upstairs that was made into a room with huge windows. We had a nightlight in one of the outlets, so we didn't have to be blind. My room was across from the nightlight, and it would often go dim and back to normal. We tested it out and messed around, even flickered lights to see what would happen to try to recreate this, and we never could.
Weird. Weirdos in the bathroom. Yeah, weirdo ghosts. Hey, you never know what you're going to get with Swamp Dweller on a nightly basis, and we love him around here. Head on over to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads, and that way you can sign up, hit subscribe, be one of his 270,000+ subscribers, listening to his stories on a daily and nightly basis. It's well worth it. You'll enjoy it. Go check it on out, the Swamp Dweller. All right. Speaking of spooky, it's time for Little Timmy Senor and the UFO Report. Let's get right to it.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
How you been doing, buddy? Good to have you back.
Good, Dave. Doing real well. Thanks for asking.
Me too, my man. Me too.
Yeah, good.
I'm very excited. Very excited. I get my woodshed delivered tomorrow. Going to cause me hours upon hours of physical labor and work. But darn it, I get a parking space back in my carport. Pretty
that's
happy.
good. No, you need that. And you've been packing in some cookies for energy. I've seen that. So you should
I
be
have
well
not eaten
prepared.
a single Oreo tonight. Not
What-
eating a single Oreo.
What kind of cookie are you eating tonight?
Oreos.
All right. Yeah.
A radio audience didn't see that.
I'm so sorry to dump on you, but I have to bust your chops as much as possible, my friend, because I know you're a dieting fiend. And so I like to call you out on this.
I deserve it.
I love you, buddy.
Oh, well. I appreciate you too as we continue on with the UFO report with the tattletale Tim Senor here tonight on the show. And Tim, it's been kind of a wild 24 hours, and it was all stirred up by one of ufology's giant skeptics out there, a former guest on this show named Mick West. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Mick West means a lot of harm to the UFO community. He just is looking for other plausible answers. And a lot of times it rubs people in this community the wrong way because some of his plausibilities just make no sense at all. And he made a comment recently about a topic we had on this show about the 1994 Ariel UFO alien incident in Zimbabwe, where a bunch of young children were out on recess or lunch. A UFO came out of the sky, landed, and aliens actually came out of this craft and communicated with some people. Well, Nick, or I should say Mick, has a slightly different theory about what happened there. And I'm sorry, it's one thing to be skeptical, but it's another thing to be and I'm going to say this politely, delusional, if that's possible.
Okay.
Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Mick was pointing out an already existing theory. And so he was pointing people towards a theory that was written about in gideonread.co.uk. And in that article, Mick was pointing out that this is another option. And so I'm just going to play devil's advocate and stay absolutely neutral here and just report what was reported through Twitter. And so Mick West says, and I quote, "Did the children at the Ariel school see puppets instead of aliens? It's a theory that sounds silly, but are traveling puppeteers actually more or less plausible than telepathic aliens?" So he offers the connection here to gideonread.co.uk. And in the article, it goes through a couple potential options here in the theory that this spaceship could have been part of a set, and the quote unquote aliens, as they were described by the school children, were in fact puppets. And so, although this is just a hypothesis that's offered up through this article, we have to consider that maybe it's a little bit far-fetched. But let's go ahead and look at some of the things that they talk about very briefly here. They describe the aliens here, and the features include gray or unusual skin color, large head, big eyes, scrawny neck, long black hair, shiny black clothing, no facial expression, stiff necks, running in slow motion, wordless communication, running up and down on top of a spaceship, quote unquote, and a big one and quite a few little ones, talking about the description of the figures, and then the figures themselves hovering and not actually touching the ground or the spacecraft themselves. And so these are descriptions that could also fit puppets. And so Mick was pointing this out as another option, and I've heard Mick speak a few times. He is a skeptic, but I think that he doesn't conclude that there is not a possibility of aliens coming and visiting our planet, but he's just looking for evidence and proof, which he hasn't seen yet. And so it does kind of rub people a little bit roughly when, these adults have come out to talk about their experiences through Randall Nickerson's recent film, Aerial Phenomenon. And this is a little bit of a timing thing too, with the release of that film only just coming out about a month and a half ago or so. Mick pointing this article out now does seem kind of timed a little bit roughly, Dave. And this is a little bit of a far-fetched potential theory, but, again, you have to consider everything. How do you feel about it?
Well, you know what? I feel that Mick sometimes goes out of his way to stir up the skeptical controversy. I don't think he is the pit bull that everybody accuses him of. I think he brings a lot of common sense. I think he brings a lot of questions, which are healthy. They are healthy. But at certain points in time, you have to be able to at least take the evidence for what it is. Okay. And Mick sometimes trolls on that a little bit. And he goes a little too far in defending his side of the ledger. And trust me, I like skepticism. We all need to be skepticism or a little bit more skeptical about what we're going through and what we are experiencing and what's the truth. But on the flip side, when he tries to ruin credibility of eyewitnesses or eyewitness testimony or evidence that is out there, example, seagulls as tic tacs, when he tries to act like he knows more than a pilot who is captaining and flying a $60 million naval aircraft in an FA-18 Hornet. Yeah. That's where I think he loses a lot of his credibility. Mm-hmm. Questions do need to be asked. However, what he takes a stance on sometimes, I just don't understand.
Yeah. And in this one in particular, he gave the option, which is more likely. And I don't like this when skeptics use this term, which is more likely, because they say, which is more likely, a roaming puppeteer group or an alien landing or an alien spaceship crash?
Well, the thing about Mick, though, is, and Jonathan Davies brings up a good point in our chat room, he never admits when he has it wrong. He leaves you jumping to conclusions. And look, if this was 1, 2, or 3 children that had seen this aerial school phenomena, I could say, well, maybe there is something to it. Okay. But when you got 20, 30, 40 kids, or whatever the number was, who were scared, traumatized, not understanding what's going on, getting mental downloads, I think you have to look on the side of the evidence rather than the plausible conclusion. And this is where Mick gets into hot trouble in my opinion. Okay? And you know what? He's so much, it's almost like at times he's so much wanting to break this community that he doesn't want to understand what people are doing and what people are saying. And I'm sorry, I'm going to believe 30, 40 kids who say that they watched an aircraft come out of the sky, land, these strange beings get out, some of them having telepathic communication, and all of them telling the same story over somebody sitting or reading a report out of Europe from people who were not there, claiming that, it was puppeteers that were driving by. That doesn't make sense. I'm also going to believe a fighter pilot over Mick West, because I'm pretty sure a fighter pilot is more highly trained to be able to discuss and eyewitness the difference between a seagull and a UFO. And I'm just not buying it. I'm just not buying it. I mean, you know, I once had a person tell me that they knew the law better than my lawyer. And my lawyer had been practicing for 40 years in law. Okay, now a lot of people will say, well, David is a lawyer, so you really don't know. But that's the reality of it. You know, it's like when somebody tries to tell me, you know, who's never worked at a newsroom, how a newsroom works. It doesn't work. Like you're not there. You've never been in that position. And we have to also start believing and taking anecdotal, what is considered anecdotal evidence. We have to start believing this a little bit more. The UFO community is one of the only communities out there where literally you can provide as much evidence as possible and everybody's still going to shoot you down. Yet
Right.
you go into a court of law, how many people are in jail today around this world because of somebody's eyewitness testimony?
Right. Well, I like to do the exact opposite of what Mick does and more or less discover the facts that are being disputed. And so rather than focus on Mick, let's talk about what he's pointing out here. He feels that this is a valid explanation. Okay. And this is one of the best mass sightings that we have with data, right? Because Dr. John Mack went there, and as a trained Harvard psychiatrist, he went and interviewed these children within a month of this happening with other specialists going along with him. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And so really, I challenge Mick more along the lines of, let's see what you have as far as supportive evidence of this puppeteer theory, because we have tons of evidence on this. Rather than kind of brush this off on another article, Mick, I would like to see you come out with a real argument of your own. Perhaps that shows a little bit more data supporting your argument opposed to John Mack's books of information.
But
And this is just one person. Please go ahead.
let's also remember, Mick West made his money off of video games. He's self-taught. He doesn't have a degree in physics, doesn't have a degree in biology. He's never been I don't believe he's ever been a pilot. You know, I'm sorry. I'm going to believe those who are experts over somebody who is trying to be sensitively. No, that's not even a word. I'll just say, you know, an overburdening skeptic.
There you go.
All
There you
right.
go. And obviously, Mick has never seen anything firsthand. So, you know, he is, you know, partial, let's just say, that he needs something to be proven to him, which is really tough because it's really tricky to get evidence. And so even the best evidence out there may not convince him if he's a true skeptic.
Here's the thing, though, okay? And Tim, I think you bring up some great points, okay? But why do we need Mick West in this field? Why do we need him? Why does his opinion mean anything at all? Look,
well, it doesn't.
Well,
it really truly doesn't, because he's not a real skeptic, okay? Because a real skeptic would bring some facts to support their argument. And he has done some deep dives on some of the military video releases on his defense. But to just cast us in Twitter to go read somebody else's work that he just supports blindly, that's the sort of thing that kind of undermines what his other potential role as a true skeptic could be. But at this point, he's really kind of borderline debunker.
Well, and that's exactly it. A skeptic is supposed to be at least looking for possible answers, impartial. We're not getting that. We're going to continue with the UFO Report, Tim Senor, when we return for the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned.
Puppets.
Just because you pissed me off.
Oh, a cookie. Oh, well done. Atta boy. There you go, radio fans. No, that's good, man. You're gonna need that to build this thing in your backyard to hold all your wood.
Mm-hmm.
You got a big thing in your backyard for your wood. Atta boy.
Dude, I'm serious. It is going to be a long time. I've got, from what I know, at least 2 wasps' nests in my wood pile. So I'm going to have to battle them. And trust me, it is challenge accepted. Total challenge accepted. Because
please
I
film
love,
it.
oh, dude, I love killing wasps.
Please
I do.
film this. I need this for the archive. Whatever you do. Maybe we could do like time lapse, because if we sped it up, that would be even better.
It's going to be ugly. It is going to be literally, okay, this is how it's going to go down.
Like a Benny Hill show.
No, because I've got the secret weapon. I've got the secret weapon. And the secret weapon is this: soap and water. And I've got a squirt gun. So I am going in hard tomorrow. All right. That when I lift those pieces of wood, I am literally going full metal jacket, and I am running right in. Once I move those couple pieces of wood, because I know where those pricks are. Okay. I am going full metal jacket, and I'm going right in. I may even do a Rambo scream. All right. And I am shooting as I go. I'm going in shooting. I'm going in hot. All right. I don't need no goggles or body armor or anything to tie me down. I'm going in hot. And when I go in hot,
just taken advantage of by them. They're gonna just
not even close.
You.
Not even close.
Please film it. Just film it. Send me the stuff so I can speed it up and we can make a Benny Hill clip out of this. It's gonna be great.
I am telling you right now, I will put money on the table. And I'll be honest with this. Whoever takes me up on this, all right, here's the deal. Tim, if I get stung once tomorrow, okay, I will buy you dinner the next time we hang out. All right? If I win, you have to go on to spacedoutradio.com and you have to buy yourself a pair of Dave boxer shorts with my face right on the front.
Okay. Challenge accepted. This is a done deal.
And then you got to wear them. All right?
Okay.
You have to wear them on the air. All right? You got to wear them on the air.
Okay.
All right.
That I can do, my friend. Challenge accepted.
I will not be stung once. And I will be completely honest with you.
I believe you. But here's the thing. You still have to film it because it's got to be good. It's going to be good either way. Even if you win, it's going to be good.
Okay. All right. So here we go. I'll try and where's my little tripod? I got my little tripod somewhere here.
Perfect.
I will set up the tripod. All right. Maybe we'll even go live with this.
Oh my God. Please get stung.
Okay. We might even go live with this.
Oh, this is going to be great.
Look at Pam. Look at Pam. A little help for any medical assistance after Waspgate. Oh, Pam.
I love
I'm telling you right now.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I'm telling you right now, Pam. Thank you for that lovely super chat. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to win. 0. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be in shorts and I'm going to be in a t-shirt. Okay. I got to get the shed set up first. Beautiful. It's raining right now here outside, which is going to pack my new driveway because I got crushed gravel on my driveway.
Could you make it a really white tank top, like a tight fitting tank top and shorts? And
Dude,
flip-flops.
everything's tight on me right
Or
now.
no
No,
boots.
I gotta wear running shoes. I have to wear.
Okay. Oh, it's
But
beautiful.
oh, dude, I'll set it up.
This is going to be great, you guys.
I just have to move some safety hazards out of the way. All right.
Mhm.
I
Here
have
comes
to.
the porn.
I have to. So one of the wrenches did that.
Little Davy
Joe
Altman.
loves that stuff. Okay. I have to move my lawnmower. I have to move my wood splitter. I got to move my snowblower. Once I get all of that out there, it is on. Me and the Wasps, and we may actually go live with this tomorrow.
I'm excited.
All right, here we go with the final half hour.
Dance with the devil.
We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have throw features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Tim Senor is here with the UFO Report. We're going to head to the Air Force, where a former intelligence expert has revealed what the United States military may already know about the increase of UFO sightings. This sounds interesting, Tim.
It is. It's absolutely interesting. So the Director of Naval Intelligence, Scott Bray, and the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Secretary Ronald Moultrie spoke with a congressional subcommittee about the highly debated subject. Bray revealed in the discussion that there have been over 400 sightings of unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UFOs, and one UFO video showed a quick-moving spherical object, while another one showed what looked like a perfect triangle shape glowing green in the sky. The Air Force itself had 11 near misses, and with the UFOs spotting them, some of these were actually interacted with. Reedy had the being in the Air Force himself believes that this does not make sense. I apologize. During the late 1940s and early 1950s, the U.S. began to improve their jet aircraft to keep up with Nazi Germany. And Reedy suggests that what appeared to look like UFOs were actually just new and foreign models of these fighter jets. He wrote, "These were sleek, silvery planes with small, swept wings flying at incredible speeds. And to even the finest flying ace of the time, the performance of the P-80 Shooting Star or the F-86 Sabre would look otherworldly to an unfamiliar Mustang or Corsair pilot." So we are starting to see some of these reports coming out, and it looks like in this new congressional subcommittee, they're starting to discuss this, Dave. So it's about time. Discussion is starting. What are your thoughts?
We see a lot of discussion starting right now. You know, it just seems like everybody wants to get into the game somehow. You know what? I really do believe right now that we're at a point, Tim, where maybe a lot of us need to take a step back, because there's so much information running rampant and running forward between Bray and Moultrie. You know, you have Elizondo running around again. Chris Mellon has been silent for a long time. Gary Nolan's really stepped up his pace. Bill Nelson with NASA, who refuses to check his own closet. I mean, we have a lot of people speaking on this topic from various different angles. And, you know, it's nice to see that it's acknowledged that sightings are actually higher than what they first reported, but those numbers still aren't truthful. If they wanted the true numbers, go to Newfork, go to MUFON. Their files are free. They're right there. You can grab them, plus whatever files you have. I mean, what are we supposed to do here? Are we supposed to be impressed by this? I mean, what do you think, Tim? Should we be impressed by this? Should we not? Should we just roll our eyes like we would do with NASA? I really don't know anymore. I'm so confused.
You bring up a great point there with NASA, and NASA in particular is an increasingly frustrating subject. And I brought it up before, but I'd like to bring it up again. I find it incredibly frustrating that NASA asks for information from its own astronauts that we're desperately trying to report to them. So for years and years, almost 75 years, our military, Air Force personnel, and all of our astronauts have been silenced and sworn to secrecy on these topics. And now NASA just comes out publicly and casually asks for its astronauts and military personnel to come forward and speak on behalf of them and talk about subjects that they have been silenced on for decades. And unfortunately, a lot of the astronauts that have these incredible stories struggled their entire adult career, having to closet a lot of this information, were not able to pass that information on before they left. And so this is incredibly frustrating, spending $100,000 on a report that they can find themselves and report on so easily. You and I know we've had conversations with NASA personnel that have shown us photographs that could easily answer their own question. And yet here we are struggling for the information publicly. It's incredibly frustrating. And so moving forward, we know that Congress is looking for this information. We know that there are things that move out there without any visible propulsion. We need to demonstrate this information to Congress with proof and evidence. And yet we have people struggling against us like Mick West. And aren't we all moving towards the same goal? We have seen an increase in disclosure, quote unquote, and towards the goal of public acceptance of this. But at the same rate, we do see the buildup. But what is this holdup, Dave? What is holding us up?
I don't know. And I think there's so many storylines right now that are really on the table. I don't even think that they know what they're talking about anymore, because we got to remember UFOs is becoming a big agenda. And what is that agenda? Agendas are people or are topics where people need to be able to try and find their own way, try and find their own belief, and they stick to it no matter what. I mean, you look at Tom DeLonge, for instance, if we take him. DeLonge is all about aliens are evil. We need to get nuclear weapons up in space and be able to launch them from our satellites because the aliens are no good. They're demonic. They're this, they're that. And we have to be able to protect this planet. Well, where'd you get that from? Well, he got it from Peter Levenda. Then you have people who are saying, look, aliens are good. Aliens are coming here. We need to make sure we're ready. We need to make sure we're taken care of. We need to make sure they're taken care of. We need to make sure that everything is A-okay, so that way we can get some peace, love, and light around here for the first time in centuries. All right? Because the one thing that we are very good at is killing people and war. We're very good at that, no matter what. So the question is, what is the agenda? Bill Nelson has an agenda. Luis Elizondo has an agenda. All right. Tom DeLonge has an agenda. What are the agendas of the politicians? And not just in the United States. What about Canada? What about Larry McGwier, who we interviewed here? What about UK politicians or Brazilian politicians who just held their own public hearings? Okay, right. Where are we going with this? There's too many angles. And what we all need to do, if we had any brains to do it, and I know the smartest one of all who's listening in right now, and I'm not going to mention their name, but they know who I'm talking about. I believe we need to take a step back and refocus and read between the lines to see what the true game plan is here. Because there are very few people right now who are messing with humanity. And in the end, this is about humanity, Tim. It's about humanity. It's about you, your children. Me, my children. I'm about to be a grandfather. All right?
Congrats.
There's a handful of people right now who are trying to control this fate of this story, which is going to affect 7.5 billion people on this planet. And you know what? The media doesn't care. The majority of the public doesn't care. All right. And it's shameful.
Yeah.
Therefore, my advice right now is for people to actually take a step back. There's too many agendas going on. And if we fall for the wrong agenda because we like the person or we dislike the person, or they got great hair or they don't have great hair, or a fantastic chin hair, or whatever it may be, because they speak to us, we're in the wrong. It's much like I pointed out on the After Hours show with Bill Nelson taking a picture with Robert Moultrie on Twitter on the weekend. And there were people from UFO Twitter on there cheering this on. Rock on! Let's do this! Yay, NASA! No. You can't support things blindly in this field when there are too many agendas. And that would be my thought on it.
That's right. And could it be more transparent than that? Right in our face, literally NASA shaking hands with the DoD. And we know that obviously NASA is an extension of the Air Force, and now we have the Space Force, which is an extension of that. And so we've talked about this lots on Disclosure Tonight with Thomas Fessler and lots of other groups. Disinformation by design. And that's what it's been for over 75 years. Disinformation by design. They are in no way going to allow anything to be pried loose at this point either. And so it's just more ways for there to compartmentalize things and disguise spending, military budgets as something else.
Yes.
And so absolutely, it's all about spending money and having the tools of destruction amplified. And so this is just one more step.
And you missed one key point on that, Tim.
Please.
It could be about making money as well.
Yeah.
It could be about making money. And this is where we have to take a step back. Look, I said to my audience back in 2017, when the To the Stars Academy was announced, I said, people, take your time on this. Take your time. Think about this. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, but you need to take your time. And I am asking our audience right now, take a step back. Okay? Learn. Read between the lines. Ask questions. If 2 + 2 is not equaling 4, ask the question because it needs to. And if you look at the bigger picture, like I'm saying, and a lot of people will say I'm preaching on this, but if you look at the bigger picture, that this isn't about you. This is about the 7.5 billion people on this planet. Your parents, my parents, our families, our children, our cousins, our best friends, our workmates, whoever. Those who are blind to the subject, we are in trouble. And there's only a handful right now who are controlling the entire agenda, including the media, for 7.5 billion people. That is scary. And we all need to take a step back, take a breath, and think about this. We really do. Tim, let's go to your final subject of the night. The UK's oldest UFO sighting revealed as the country's first ever X-file. This sounds great. Tell me about it.
Oh, it was so exciting to dig this up. So Cromwell Mortimer jotted down a sketch of the mystery object and published it in the Philosophical Transactions in 1746. And this was just coming forward recently. And so this was discovered about actually just last month. And so the UK's oldest UFO sighting has been revealed as the first ever X-file. It was first spotted 280 years ago when physician Cromwell Mortimer, the secretary of the Royal Society, spotted a ball of light in the sky as he left work. He was walking home to Westminster, central London, in December of 1742, and he recorded what he witnessed in a scientific UFO report. The physician jotted down a sketch of the mystery object and published it in the Philosophical Transactions, Volume 58, in 1746, which has just come to light for the first time. Mr. Mortimer wrote, and I quote, "As I was returning home from the Royal Society to Westminster on Thursday, December 16th, at 2040, beginning about the middle of the parade in St. James Park. As he walked down, I saw a light, and I quote, I saw a light arise from behind the trees and the houses in the south by the West Point, which I took at first to be a large skyrocket. But when it had risen to the height of about 20 degrees, it took a motion nearly parallel to the horizon, but waved in this manner and went on north by northeast and point over the houses. As Mr. Mortimer watched the object, he believed its path had brought it directly over the Bloomsbury district of London, passing over the Queen's Square, and making its way in the direction of the canal adjacent to it. Mr. Mortimer said that he lost sight of it over the Haymarket. Describing the way it moved, he wrote, and I quote, its motion was so very slow that it had about a half a minute in view and had time enough to contemplate its appearance fully. He drew a diagram showing the weird object. Based in this, he explained the mechanics of the object as follows. It seemed to be a light or a flame turning backwards from the resistance of the air that made against it. A bright fire like burning charcoal, enclosed, as it were open, as if in case of which the frame was quite opaque, like braids and bands of iron.
Wow.
Issued forth a train of light or a tail of flame, more bright and glowing, gradually fainter, so as to be transparent. So it just faded off into the distance. Pretty cool.
Sounds like what a lot of people see, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. A glowing ball of fire in the sky that just trails off into the distance. You know, that is still a very popular report. And sometimes I think these could even be considered orbs, right? That just kind of float and seem to come down out of space and then just float horizontally along treetops. I myself have filmed that. So it's definitely a popular report from old times and even recent. Have you ever seen an orb, Dave?
Many. The one that there's two that I remember the most. Number one, we were in a meditation session with a number of friends of ours, and I popped out of the meditation, and I watched this golf ball size, like orange golf ball size orb float right past the doorway, got halfway through the door to the, at the doorway, stopped, and came out from the door, and it got within inches, like maybe 3-4 inches from my friend's elbow. And I said to her, there's an orb at your elbow. And she guided, just like I did. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. But the second one was weird. At another meditation group that we had over there, we came out of the forest because we were, Samantha Mowat and I were showing everybody where we had seen the aliens in the forest. We come out of the forest, and the guy who owned the property looks up in the sky, and just southeast of his property, there's this giant orb in the sky. It looks like a weather balloon. All right. So half an hour later, we're still watching this. I have to go because our son is an infant at this time, and it's feeding time. So we have to go home and drive home looking for this orb or whatever while I'm driving. Cannot find it. I live about 7 miles away, if that. And get home, pull into the garage. I go outside of my patio looking for this orb. I'm looking towards my friend's house, can't see it, nothing. Guess where it was, Tim? It was right over top of my house. Showed my kids, showed my mother-in-law, showed my partner, and it stayed there for 2.5 hours above my house before it slowly started moving north, and then about 2 hours later, it was actually gone. I don't know to this day if it was something spiritual, something ufological, or something plausible like a weather balloon. It was translucent. It was amazing. But the fact that it stayed over top of my house for 2.5 hours to this day is what still mesmerizes me over this.
Yeah.
Mesmerizes me.
And you had one inside your home.
At my friend's house.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I wish that you had thought to capture it on film at some point, especially that one over your house.
They had a rule. Okay. Actually, I did capture pictures on my iPhone 3, and I got the blue screen of death and everything erased on my phone a couple months later. But the other orb on that property, that's the same property I saw the Sasquatch, same property, the UFO landing, and the same property where Samantha Mowat and I walked into the forest to see the aliens. Okay, they had a rule there, which was no photography, no video cameras. They wanted the phenomena to know it was safe there and was not being taken advantage of. And I believe that's why the phenomena continued there and may still continue there today. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of people that believe that the phenomenon is aware of being recorded. Makes absolute sense if it doesn't want to be. I have seen things get glitchy myself, so I don't doubt that you had things lifted off of your phone. I've seen that happen personally as well. So
yeah, I hear you, Tim. We got to wrap this thing up because it is time to go. We'll do Shirky Poo's news tomorrow. There's some great stories there, but we got a little carried away here, and I never mind getting carried away. I really don't. It makes it a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it too. Big thank you to Tim Senor, Swamp Dweller, for another great story. Of course, Science Bob and Simeon Hein for coming on in for Science Bob and Friends. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up. For the guitar god himself, special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone, in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. I know you're out there somewhere. This show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night. Thank you to Gnome Squatch for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
Because that one we did have on tape on Periscope. And literally, I had my flag across the window like this, okay? And I thought my buddy, little Marky Spender, I knew he was working the night shift that week at the mill. And I thought he had snuck up to the window and was with a little ball peen flashlight going back and forth, because you could see the light, Tim, going like from here right across and then back again and all this. In fact, during one of the breaks, I actually went outside to see if I could sneak up to Mark, and there was nobody there. And then I didn't see it looking at the camera like this, but on camera, you actually see the orb go right in front of my face. I did not see that.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. It makes you wonder, like, how much of that's taking place without us noticing it all the time. Like, for instance, recently I captured something that was above my house with a multi-spectrum camera, and it was pretty large. It makes you wonder kind of like what's there all the time, and you're just not seeing it because you don't see that spectrum. Or another thing that I wonder is that you see it, but it doesn't register. Or a third option is that, like, somehow it just makes you forget it, or just like think that it's no big deal. You know
That's
what I
a big
mean?
one too. That's a
Kinda-
big one too there, my
Kind of
friend.
dumbs you down a little bit. It's weird. In fact, while I was working on this recent project, I almost deleted a video because I was just like, oh, that's definitely not something. And I was like going to delete it for space. And I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? That's a maybe, you just never know. But sometimes you're convinced to just delete stuff or get rid of the evidence, which is frustrating.
It's going to be an interesting call here coming up soon. It really is. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be strange. It's going to be, I think very soon we're going to figure out that there's a lot of right people and there's a lot of wrong people out there. And who knows when that's going to happen or what's going to happen. But that's just what I feel.
Well, what needs to happen is the public needs to have a very credible source for this data that is super transparent and, leaves every bit of information out there for anyone to scrutinize, including Mick West.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if it's about the data anymore, Tim. And this is where you and I will potentially agree to disagree. I don't know if it's about the data anymore. And that, a lot of people may not like that. They'll say, Dave, you've ridden a little too hard on the woo train. But I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure anymore.
You feel like the phenomenon is going to reveal itself really is the only way, large scale?
Not large scale, but eventually I have a feeling the phenomena is going to say, okay, enough bullshit, and this is the way it is.
Take it out of our hands. Yeah.
Right? And the peace-loving lighters and the doomsdayers are all going to be shocked as hell when it happens.
Right. Dave, I'm curious, would we even know? Like, would we even notice as humans? Like, how would it even demonstrate itself?
Look, I'm going to tell you this. Grant Cameron has taken a lot of crap over the years, okay? As someone who is very nuts and bolts and very about what do the presidents know, and he was hardcore on that until he started opening up his mind. And Grant Cameron did the smartest thing that any researcher could do, in my opinion. And that was he left no door unopened. All right. Now, a lot of people are out there saying that Grant, fell off the deep end. He's the conductor of the woo train, or he lost his marbles. I've heard it all. Okay. And I will defend Grant until the ends of the earth. But the smartest thing he ever did was he opened up as many doors as possible, and he followed those paths behind the doors to see where they led. And when they led to a dead end, he stopped, he turned around, and he restarted with the next door. And when that trail kept going and through a fork in the road, he took both sides of the fork to see where it went. And to me, in this game where the phenomena cannot be proven, the phenomena cannot be predicted, okay, I think Grant has done the smartest research ever and allowed the phenomena to take him where he needed to go to find answers. And that is why I think, with Grant, the type of researcher he is and the type of roads he has gone on, I think this is why we need more people listening to Grant, listening to Nicole Sackage, listening to the words that people of their ilk are saying, because they're dealing with experiencers. They are also experiencers. They know how to read between the lines, and they know how to follow the path to something that is unpredictable. And the phenomena will not give itself up to those who are trying to predict it or to those who are trying to control it. And that's what I believe.
Do you think that Grant could ever represent in front of Congress? Like, would that be a possibility?
I could see the U.S. Congress before the Canadian. Okay, Canada's behind on this. Okay, Canada's behind. We're still talking nuts and bolts while Fox News is talking woo. Okay, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Hey, man, I'm going to have to duck out a little early tonight. I've still got a couple edits I want to make before the night is over.
You go, buddy.
I'm going to dip out, but audience, thank you very much for your time. And Dave, thanks for having me on the UFO Report. It's been fun.
I'll give you a call tomorrow, bud.
Sounds good. Have fun, everybody. Take care of Dave for me.
Oh, they'll take care of me. They always do.
All right,
they
buddy. Have fun, guys.
Do. They're
Ciao.
always watching. Always watching. All right. Any questions from any of you out there? I don't have Squatch on my Property Mystics walk because I don't know what Squatch is. I don't even have Sasquatch out here. Sasquatch is that way and that way. This way here about 4 miles. This way here about 10 miles, if that. All right. Just seeing if you guys have any questions while I'm editing here. Oh, Noob Smurf, you're got some possible Sasquatch pictures or some structures? Nice. I'll tell you right now, Noob, I am not the person to send that to. Because I'm struggling to figure out I can't find a damn one. I can't. I would suggest send them to either Super Duke at World Bigfoot Radio or Bigfoot Michigan Rob. They would have the best answers and connections for you in that area. Noob Smurf, by the way, is on Twitch watching. One of our loyal listeners there. Yeah, they're right there. Noob. You're not going to be able to see that. I'll put it up on the screen. If you email Super Duke at this email address, send him the photos. Super Duke is amazing. He really is. And Bigfoot Michigan Rob as well. And they both could help you out. I trust both those guys with having our listeners and their inquiries close to them. So send it to there, and you'll be able to get an answer from Super Duke, because Super Duke's awesome that way. Would they fake aliens, or would real aliens interfere at that point? Applesauce, I'm just trying to find. I don't know what you mean at that point. Maybe I'm missing something here. I apologize if I am. There. Oh, Noob Smurf. Who could decipher that for you? Preston Dennett. Preston Dennett and his girlfriend Dolly Saffron. They are amazing. Or Geraldine Orozco. That was weird. The hell was that all about? All right. I will do a more in-depth Dave 101 on this tomorrow night. You guys just remind me. Okay? Just remind me about that. I'll be right back. I'm going to take a bathroom break. All right. Sorry about that, people. All right. Any more questions from you guys? I will check the chat room here momentarily to see if I missed any. Give me 2 seconds here so I can start my download. What a good show tonight. What a good show. All right. Lately, disclosures hinting that the UFO phenomenon is more metaphysical. Do you think science will be able to explain it? Gnome Squatch, I believe it will. As long as Gary Nolan continues, we will go down that road. But just remember, Gary Nolan is part of that boys crew, right? And Gary Nolan is the closest we have right now, along with, his partner, Jacques Vallée, in dealing with this. Gary Nolan's a brilliant scientist that we need to listen more to. But in the end, I really do believe that they have to get experiencers on the table. They do. Or at the table, pardon me. Okay. And there are plenty of them. All right. It doesn't matter who you use. Okay. It doesn't have to be Chris Bledsoe. It doesn't have to be Travis Walton or Whitley Strieber or whomever. And this is why I'm very interested in watching this Fox News documentary on experiencers, because Fox News right now is really pushing the experiential agenda. And that's where we're going. And don't think that they haven't been tipped off, that Tucker Carlson hasn't been tipped off on that. Okay? Because he has. All right? But that's where they're going with this. Okay? This isn't nuts and bolts. That's the big thing. This isn't nuts and bolts. This is way more beyond nuts and bolts. And it's, I don't even know how to put it. I really don't. Okay? Way beyond nuts and bolts. Way beyond nuts and bolts. And that's the truth of it all. The question is why Fox? The audience is all right wing. So if we could take names out of it, we could reframe the question to why are they pushing the alien narrative on right wing voters? I don't think it has anything to do right now, YJ, with right wing or left wing. I think what it has to do with in the U.S. is the fact that Tucker Carlson, since the beginning of this story 5 years ago, has taken a very keen interest. And trust me when I say this, I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson's, okay? I've said on the show many a times, he's got one of those faces that you just want to punch. Okay, I'm not a fan of his type. I can't even call what he does journalism. Okay, I just can't. However, CNN has not picked up this story. They haven't had a reporter running with it. They haven't had, that person who is addicted to the story like Tucker Carlson is. And because Tucker and his team also realize, as they're being smart, that every time he goes down the UFO road, the ratings spike. It's a win-win for him. He's got an interest in it. He's got an interest in the topic. And every time he talks about it, his ratings go up and they spike, which is great for advertisement. Why CNN hasn't jumped on the bandwagon, I don't know, but I don't believe it's a right wing or left wing. I think it's a matter of interest and knowing what is working for his audience right now. And UFOs is working. The alien agenda is working. Talking to Gary Nolan is working. And the specials that they are doing on it, I mean, they are fully taking advantage of the fact that they see rating spikes when they're going up. And it's a smart business move for them to do this. Okay, are they being tipped off? Is Tucker being tipped off? Probably. Okay. But I don't see it being a political agenda as much as I see it being the fact that they are taking advantage of the rating spikes as they continue. That's what I see happening. Any other questions? Oh, money is a really big driver, YJ. That it's a huge driver. Why step over a $5 bill to pick up a quarter? Right? Plus, if you want to make it political, which is easy, Republicans have a tendency to base a lot of their military and military spending on fear. They sell a lot of fear, which is why they're always proponents to more defense budget spending. Right? So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. That I don't know. But from a media standpoint, they are making money on these topics hand over fist. Hand over fist, they are making big money off of this. And why not take advantage of it? Any other questions, guys? Who's on tomorrow night? John Russell is on tomorrow night. Ghosts, Aliens, Angels, and the Spirits of the Dead. John Russell tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. That's going to be a fun show. When are you doing SOR live? What I'm waiting for right now is I am redoing a couple of rooms in my house, And I have to be honest with you, I have to get a trailer for my side-by-side. I got to get my side-by-side tuned up, and I need to get a trailer for it. Oh, one thing that I do want to say to all of you is this. The first 2 full weeks after the Labor Day weekend of September, I'm going to be taking 2 weeks off. The after-hours show will still be on the weekends, but I really need a mental break, and I need to refocus and get some business stuff done. And mainly that business stuff is catching up on sleep. If there is some sort of breaking news, we will do a show. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going on a holiday or anything like that. But there's a bunch of stuff that I need to do, and I'm really going to need some time to try and catch up on some sleep, because I do push myself a little hard. And so I've decided, along with our team, that the weeks of, I can tell you here, the weeks of the 5th through the 9th, and then the 12th through the 16th, I am going to be taking off, and we will be dead air those nights. So I do apologize to you guys, but old Davey does need to catch up on some sleep. Thank you, Steam Train Mark, for letting me know that I am alive later today. How much info are we getting through television shows? Not much. You're getting snippets because a lot of the reporters don't know how to ask the proper questions about this. My suggestion is read between the lines. Take what you feel and then read between the lines and focus on what you think the answer is, right? So that's what I think is going on. That's the best advice I could give you right now. I'm actually looking forward to the break. I really am. Believe it or not. But we'll be coming back strong and focused. And that's what I look forward to. Coming back strong and focused. We'll keep you in touch. What's going on? I'll still be on social media and everything. All right, guys. It is that time of the night where we got to say goodnight to all of you. We'll see you tomorrow night, where once again our guest is going to be John Russell. We're going to talk ghosts. We're going to talk some paranormal, aliens, spirits, you name it. We're getting into it with John tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Thank you tonight to Linda, Ken, Lala, Thomas, Kira ×2, Pam, and Marty for the super chats. And what we will do is say goodnight to you tonight. Thank you to everybody giving us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, we would appreciate it. It really helps with the algorithms. Also, if you could, leave a comment below and let us know what you think. As I all of a sudden get the hiccups, I'm going to get out of here. Take care. See ya. Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.